Good morning to all of you. It's truly a pleasure and a proud moment for this ISACA Sri Lanka chapter to welcome each and every one of you for this session today. What makes today special is not just the event itself, but the diversity in this virtual room. Today, we have professionals, leaders, and students connecting from different industries and different backgrounds and different parts of the world. And yet, despite all these differences, there's one powerful thing that is common to all of us, that is technology. In today's world, in everything we practically do, every decision we make and every design and the strategies that we design in our companies inevitably intersects with IT. And along with it comes the growing importance of governance, security, and leadership. So these are no longer niche topics. They are all critical business priorities that we have to deal with each and every day. And that is why exactly today's theme, navigating uncertainty, governance, security, and leadership in rapidly changing world is so relevant. But because, let's be honest, we are all operating in an environment where change is constant, risk is evolving practically every day, and expectations are always higher than ever before. So whether you're a seasoned professional or a student just starting your journey, today is about equipping yourself with insights, with perspectives, and most importantly, with the mindset needed to thrive in uncertainty. So on that note, it gives me immense pleasure to officially welcome you to SheLeadsTech conference, virtual conference, proudly organized by the ISACA Sri Lanka chapter. This is a very special milestone for us. While this is a focused half-day conference designed to bring you high-impact value in a short term, it is also the first time we are hosting and broadcasting a program of this nature. So that's why it makes very special to all of for us as members of ISACA Sri Lanka chapter. And that makes today not just a conference, but keep a step forward in how we connect, how we share knowledge, and how we build communities that go beyond borders. At the heart of this initiative in SheLeadsTech, a global movement by ISACA that is not just about representation, but about empowerment. It is about creating space for more voices, more leadership, and more impact in the fields of technology, governance, and beyond. To guide us through this journey today, we have an exceptional lineup of speakers, leaders, and experts who bring with them deep experience across governance, cybersecurity, legal, and regulatory landscapes, risk, and emerging technologies. These are individuals who are not just talking about the change, but they practice it every day. So I encourage all of you, lean in, be present, be curious. You always have the liberty to ask questions. The chat box is always open for you. So you can post any number of questions and we will assure you that we will take them all after each presentation. So with that, I'm excited for what lies ahead. And I hope you too. And I look forward to an engaging and thought-provoking session with all of you. Thank you, and once again, welcome to the SheLeadsTech virtual conference. So as we reflect on those thoughts, it is now timely to delve into how these principles translate into real-world impact through AI governance. We are now privileged to move on to our first segment. Session 1 is about AI governance in practice, delivering enterprise outcomes in operations. So our first speaker today is Ms. Deepti Monga, SheLeadsTech Singapore Ambassador. Deepti is the Director of Professional Services in APAC, where she leads large-scale digital transformation initiatives across cloud, infrastructure, and platform modernization. She brings extensive experience in driving AI-enabled transformation in contact center operations, delivering measurable improvements in efficiency and cost optimization. Her strengths lie in program delivery, governance, and enterprise execution. So without taking much time, I now invite Deepti to take us to the session. Deepti, over to you.
Thank you, Ruandi, for the introductions, and thank you everyone for joining. Hope you're able to hear me.
Yes, Deepti, you're audible and can be seen. The video is on too.
Thanks. Let me share my slides. Right. Uh, so let me briefly tell you that today's presentation is mostly based on my perspective from my leadership experience across governance, delivery, and operations leadership in Asia Pacific region, leading complex digital transformation initiatives. And I will keep this session quite practical in terms of AI and will not discuss AI as a trend. I will discuss AI from the scalability perspective, from stability perspective, and predictability. Uh, we will touch on the topics like why certain AI initiatives scale and others do not. Some AI initiatives get stuck at the pilot phase and never see the light of production. So let me go through this. So as you can see, hopefully my slides, this is the iceberg, and you can see some portion of this above the surface and some actually mostly below the surface. So above the surface, what you see is Gen AI agents, co-pilots, demos, and lot of pilots. But below the surface lies the actual thing that's called governance, process redesign, operations, and people who make it happen. And the below the surface is much more complex and much bigger thing, which we're going to talk about today. I will discuss three things today, and which you will have better understanding at the end of this discussion. The first thing is AI failures are really about technology or AI. AI failures are mostly about operating model challenges. Second thing is the best AI is often invisible. And this might sound a little surprising to you that I'm saying that best AI is often invisible. And I will tell you this in detail later on. Third is AI evolves faster than organizations change. So um, as we know that AI, new tools, new models are coming into picture every single day. And the complexity around AI is increasing every day. But when it comes to organizational change, the operating model change, the culture change, it is much time consuming as compared to AI, the speed of AI. So the core problem lies in when we expect the AI to deliver results, but we forget that there are other aspects in the organization which are equally important, if not more. These are the process, people, and governance. So without changing the operating models, the culture, the people, roles, responsibility, accountability, and the governance around the AI systems, if we just inject the AI into the workplace, it's not going to deliver desired results. It will produce suboptimal results. fragmented outcomes, which will create a lot of friction over time, duplication, accountability gaps, and maybe finger pointing. And today I'm going to share 7 failure patterns which are going to which will make AI systems fail most of the time in most of the organizations. My first failure pattern is the use case misdefinition. So in most of the organizations I've seen, and if I talk to the customers across APAC, they start with the question that, can you implement AI features in your product? They never start with the problem statement. What are they missing from the business usability perspective? What are their challenges? Like, is the speed challenge, or they are planning to improve the revenue margins, or they are want to enhance the user experience, or they want to reduce the average waiting time, or what is the real problem? The actual problem solving starts when we are very clear on the problem statement which we are trying to solve. When we decide the KPIs in upfront, that what are the KPIs which we are going to measure, and what are the thresholds or the milestones we want to achieve out of those transformations. Second failure pattern is pilot to production gap, and it happens a lot nowadays. A lot of organizations are doing pilots, I will say fragmented pilots across their organization in different departments. And when they want to scale those pilots to the production, they are unable to. And why is it that? Because there's a lot of variance in in the way they govern a pilot and the production system. In pilot, they tend to oversimplify it. They tend to ignore the exception handling. Uh, they uh, they forget about all the upstream, downstream system and all the integration points. They do not care so much about the change resistance when it comes to adoption among their users. All this creates integration depths. And real life production data is much more complex than what is used in the pilots. It is very much also dependent upon the changing pattern of business usage, what data is created, right? If the data changes, the model gets stripped, and the assumptions are no longer true, and AI might not behave in the optimal manner. In the pilot, when we do not even define the ownerships clearly, and there's several gaps in the ownership, it also propagate to the production system and make it fail. Third failure pattern is about ownership ambiguity. So broadly, if we talk about different departments like business, IT, and operations, and there are other departments also like cyber security, risk, compliance, legal, data. So each one of us is responsible for their own domain function. But what happens when there is nobody to take the overall accountability? Then there is no way that feedback loop can be imposed and corrective actions can be taken when it needs to be done. At that time, I, s- I have seen that when the business sponsors take the overall accountability, and when other functions become responsible to support the accountable function, this is where the actual systems become stable, scalable, resilient, and successful. The fourth failure pattern I have seen is when we consider AI as standalone separate system and we fail to integrate into the actual workflow or the system. The AI is not embedded in the actual workflow. What it does is that it creates governance gap. We need to set up the governance, exception handling, uh, service management, uh, everything from the scratch for AI systems. It creates duplicate efforts, inconsistent outputs, and most importantly, adoption issues. So imagine if a user need to refer to multiple screens before they are able to do their job. It's simply increasing their workload. And this workload increase results in non-adoption. Industries, companies, corporates spend so much of their efforts, multi-million dollars of their budgets in implementing AI systems. But imagine if these AI systems are not adopted, trusted by the users, what happens? It's a waste of money and efforts. Let me talk about failure pattern 5, which is a matrix misalignment. So every function, whether it's IT, business, or operations, they're governed by certain KPIs. For example, if we talk about IT, they might consider a deployment success rate as a important KPI. For operations, it could be the number of incidents, maybe P1 issue, uh, severity, uh, high severity issues as you know as a priority. That how much is the how much are we getting P1, P2, P3? These are become their KPIs. But what is missing here is the shared matrix around, among all the functions. So these are the actual outcomes which we are trying to derive out of AI capability. The actual business uh, outcomes, the success criteria, like it could be revenue related, cost, efficiency, customer experience, adoption, and so these are the basic and the fundamental among all the teams. So we should not, never lose sight of it, even if we belong to different functions. So, and this is what comes very handy when we want to scale these systems into different business units across different countries, across different regions. And failure pattern 6 I will talk about is that governance is not an injection, which you can actually inject into the system after it goes live. It is actually something which need to be taken care at every level of every stage of the life cycle of AI systems. For example, I will say that first design it correctly, build it correctly, right? So this is where AI governance, uh, enterprise architecture, security, legal, compliance teams come into picture even at the design phase. Second thing is operations. So run it right. So, service management comes into picture here. AI, ML, ops, and uh, IT ops come into picture here. So what we need to have is a human feedback loop, such that if there is a drift in the data, if the model is not behaving as expected, or it is showing unusual patterns, somebody needs to observe this, monitor this throughout the life cycle of AI, and correct it. And the third uh, layer I will say is performance layer, which is actually uh, taken care of mostly by the business who tracks performance, ROI, outcomes. So the governance has to be implemented on all three layers. And whenever there is a governance gap, we see that the results are suboptimal. So this is the seventh failure pattern, which is mostly the scaling challenge. Nowadays, a lot of organizations are uh, having fragmented pilots, right? They are running pilots into different functions across different teams, across different vendors, and there's nothing common. No common framework, no unified governance, no common tooling and operating model. What it results in? It results in duplication of efforts, unable to repeat the success, challenges across scalability, and I will say the enterprise capability or the learning is never built. So every time you need to start a new AI initiative, you need to start from the scratch. There is nothing you can use uh, because if you do not create a repeatable governance model, there's nothing to reuse. And there's no enterprise learning or capability which is created. I will talk about 5 principles which will help to counter these 7 failures. First principle is to problem led. Basically, we have to have the right use case or the problem statement before we can even think about which technology, which tools. The clarity on the business problem which we are trying to solve is the most fundamental. Second thing is the workflow embedded. So once the AI is integrated and it's invisible, it is it becomes part of the adoption process, and the governance is not separate. It is part of the, it's sharing the governance which is already in place. The third thing is a clear ownership. So as we say, RACI matrix, right? So the clear accountability and ownership across different functions uh, results in higher efficiency and less finger pointing and inefficiencies when the systems are tested in the real life scenarios. Fourth is the operating KPIs. So as I said, that we need to have the common KPIs across all the functions, which measure the actual AI outputs rather than those execution related KPIs, which impact the business performance. And the fifth one I will talk about is the governance. Um, so design governance for operations performance and not just for deployment, right from the day one. I will briefly share the case study where I actually implemented a gamification based tool, which is AI and machine learning based for the call center operations for a tier one telco in Singapore. We started with a problem statement. So we had long handling times for, uh, for, uh, for the repetitive queries, and which is resulting in inefficiencies. There's no way we could have scaled the call center on monthly basis, depending upon the new system launches. And there were inconsistent service qualities across agents. So what we implemented was a gamification tool. So imagine somebody is playing games, but they are actually learning without realizing it. And if they perform well in the games, they get the rewards as simple as a t-shirt, right? And what it does, it removes the boredom from the system, and it improves employee morale. So we result in 30% increase in employee morale, then 40% decrease in the average call handling time, 30% decrease in the operational cost, and it was a success from all perspective, because we took care of all the governance aspect. And after this also, if we want to implement more AI tools, AI enabled tools, then it's easier, because we have already done our groundwork of creating some AI capability within the organization. I will end this discussion with 4 points. First is, AI is not a technical challenge. AI is very powerful and very complex technology too. The challenge lies is in the operating model. With the right operating model, AI can perform really well. Second thing is, ownership drives execution. Without ownership, there will be always gaps. So we need to make sure that there are no gaps when it comes to execution. Every everybody, I mean, team as a whole is responsible for every sort of scenario to handle it. Fourth point is, it is the workflow which drives adoption. So do not treat AI as a standalone separate system. Make it part of the existing system. Fourth, governance drives scalability. So with the right governance, scalability is very easy. And if we do not have the right governance setup, right operating models, right KPIs, right uh, ownerships, scalability becomes challenge. And this is where uh, certain AI systems are able to scale and certain are not able to scale. With this, I'm happy to take up questions.
Hi, Deepti. Thank you so
Hi.
much for that very insightful session. I have one question for you. What criteria do you think we should decide whether an idea is worth piloting versus scrapping early when it comes to AI? How would
Sorry.
you see it? Sorry, so how would you see, what criteria should we look at when we are trying to whether it's worth piloting or versus scrapping early? If you look at in certain processes, how would you see it?
Okay, whether an idea is worth piloting or not depends upon whether our problem statement is worth solving or not, right? So when we check the feasibility of any business case, we look at different options. We see that how much problem severity is, and how much visibly in this looking at the technology, looking at all the constraints, how much are we able to solve it? And once that clarity is there, we will know whether we are able um, uh, to bring about all those results which we wish to. So there are different, like from financial perspective, there are different models like payback period, like so for example, if we invest in a certain AI functionality today, right? Are we able to um, get the results in another 2-3 years? Um, so this is all which is important. We also maintain the risk register, looking at what are the you know uh, challenges we might have going forward. So our economy is very uncertain. There are times when you build a tool today and tomorrow it might not be useful because some user behavior has changed, right? So we take care of all the uncertainties in the ecosystem and decide whether something is worth doing it or not in the pilot phase.
Thank you. How do you see it? Who should own some kind of a deployment in AI, and who should take ownership of the maintenance of an AI system in an organization?
Yes, Ruvanti. So for the deployment, normally it's the delivery team which takes care of it. So delivery is like the program managers. So who manage the deliveries, right? With the help of DevOps and AI Ops, and who should be supporting it's the operations team, the service management teams, right? And who have to take care of how the system is performing over a period of time. Uh, so without that proper monitoring, you know, as I said, the data can drift and the models might not behave in the optimal manner. So these are the two teams, like which is built and run. In certain organization, both the teams are reporting to the same, professional services head. So I'm into professional services, that's what I can say. But in certain organizations, it could be different. The delivery reports to one head, and the managed services or the support reports to another head of support.
Okay, there's one more question. How should small organizations with limited engineering resources approach pilots to avoid the pilot to production trap?
Very good question, Ruvanti. So I would say start small, right, and have the right governance in place. Governance does not mean that you need to have several processes. What you need to have is the minimal number of processes which will uh, take you to the desired results. So um, if you have a AI roadmap, start with the most promising problem which needs to be um, dealt urgently, and then build up the other AI capabilities in different functions later on, right? And from this, you will have some learning um, from your first initiative, which you can use for the second initiative. It will create a feedback loop and also creates enterprise level um, learning, right? Which can be used uh, as long as the organization exists. And in terms of uh, who should uh, who should deploy and who should run it, in smaller organizations, both the functions, both the teams can report the same person, and it has been proven that if they report to the same function, um, right, then it delivers much better. Um, uh, because head of services, or like, because there is no finger pointing and both work in the towards the same objectives. And second thing is, then resource utilization is much better, because uh, certain people I have seen is that we can reuse the resource for both, for delivery, for deployments also, and for the maintenance also. It increases the utilization and reusability of the resources, which increasingly most of the organization are opting for now.
Okay, thank you so much, Deepti, for that insightful session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we are now moving into our second session, governance frameworks in the age of invisible risk. Our second speaker for today is Ms. Ashwini Natesan. Ashwini is a legal consultant and a research fellow specializing in technology, media, and communications law. As a research fellow at Learn Asia, a tech policy think tank founded in Sri Lanka, she focuses on issues relating to data protection, data governance, online safety, AI ethics, and the use of data for public good. She's also a consultant at Julius and Creasy for TMT Law. Additionally, she undertakes independent projects related to online safety, data protection, AI governance, and the right to information. She has several publications to her credit and frequently presents at conferences nationally and regionally. She is a director on the boards of LB Finance PLC and Associated Motor Finance. Previously, she was part of the Responsible AI subcommittee tasked with drafting Sri Lanka's national AI strategy. She is a part of the Digital Trust Alliance board. She was selected to the Media Policy Institute at the University of Oxford in 2024 and is a former fellow of the Internet Law and Policy Foundry. She was also selected as a regional expert for the Asia Pacific Consultation on Human Rights in the Digital Space by the International Commission of Jurists in 2025. She holds an LLM from the National University of Singapore and has completed various certifications, fellowships, and programs, including AI policy, AI governance, and AI safety fundamentals. So without much ado, I invite Ashwini to take the floor and share her insights. Ashwini, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ruvandi, for that kind introduction, and a very good morning, everyone. It's great to be here and to be sharing my thoughts on governance frameworks for invisible risks. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and Ruvandi, please let me know if you are able to see that, and also if you have any issues with just noting my slides.
Sure. Can we see, Ashwini?
Let me just go to full screen. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes talking about governance frameworks in the age of invisible risks. And I believe that today's audience are the best match that we can have in terms of understanding what really are the concerns of governance when it comes to an era where we don't really know what these threats are. So I'll just go to my next slide. Ruvandi, when I move slides, you're able to see it, right?
Yes, can be seen.
Thank you. So what really are these invisible risks? It's just not about those risks that you're not able to see, which is, yes, it is that as well, but it's not only that, it's also about those risks which can't accurately be measured. And because it's not really visible and it cannot be accurately measured, governance structures for these kind of risks always become a challenge. So we are talking about digital intangibles. It can be models, it can be data flows, it can be synthetic content, and how these can fall through the gaps. And when we say it can't be easily measured, because we are moving away from the traditional risk frameworks that look at historical data. So these emerging risks, for instance, like AI hallucinations and quantum threats, they really defy the quantification and the historical data that we use. And the other thing that I also want to say is about when we say it's not seen, we're just not talking about them operating without our knowledge sometimes, but it's also about them operating in silos where we don't really have visibility to how these vulnerabilities affect the everyday workflows that we are facing. So many of you may wonder what is a law person doing at a tech event, but I want to stress this more than ever. In the times that we live in, it's extremely important to have interdisciplinary teams. So while this slide deck that I've put together has its basics in some of the legal concepts, but it's really not about the law. It is about governance structures that can be implemented. And this shows that we can no longer only see something as a tech problem. It's no longer a cybersecurity problem. It's no longer something for legal to take care of. We can no longer work in those silos. We have to work together. And why we have to work together is something that we'll be seeing in the next few slides as well. In the 2000s, it's the era of IT risk as we knew it, because we looked at it from the point of view of viruses, hacking attacks, system outages, data losses, etc. And of course, the responses were perimeter defense, one of the few things. Now, I'm not saying that we are completely over that. There's absolutely risks of viruses, system outage, data losses, more so even today. But we moved towards more cyber risks in the 2010s with breaches, ransomware attacks, etc. And then the response to that was zero trust models. And in the 2020s, we spoke a lot about, and we continue to speak a lot about, the digital risks. It can be AI bias, it can be deep fakes, or cloud misconfigurations, etc. And that we look at, the responses have been risk by design. But as we move ahead, and I believe that in the next decade, it's all about the invisible risks. And even if I'm not saying the next decade, even in the last part of this decade, we are moving towards risks of autonomous functioning AI, quantum threats, synthetic reality. And the response to that is certainly anticipatory governance. We are not going to reach very much if we don't have anticipatory governance frameworks in place. And before I go on to expand upon this governance structure that is anticipatory in nature, let's look at why traditional governance fails. And I'm also mindful of time, so I'll be careful about that. Why is it that governance in the traditional form fails? First thing is from a retrospective design perspective. See, traditional governance looks at past incidents, and I'm not saying that model does not work, it works, but we have to anticipate novel risk vectors from AI, automation, or synthetic data environments, which is why retrospective design is not really the way that we have to go forward. The next one is the point I just made on siloed accountability. Working within your own teams is not going to be useful, and it's not going to be effective and efficient, particularly in the era that we are moving towards and the era that we already are in. So we need IT, we need legal, we need business units, all of those who operate independently, but they need to come together when it comes to the risks and how these risks can effectively be managed. And the other point is compliance is not equal to risk management. We always look at compliance as doing the very bare minimum, and it's also a checkbox exercise. But that in itself will completely miss the actual risk exposure, because we are moving away, at least we should aim to move away from compliance and move towards effective risk management. And the last point, which I think is very, very important and crucial, it's about the speed mismatch. So technology keeps evolving at an exponential pace, just like law and regulation, which can never keep up with technology. Governance cycles, sadly, are also quite archaic and stuck in a time loop where we are not really looking at what we need to be doing ahead. And that is why I feel there is a gap when it comes to the real-time threat world and what we have in terms of a governance framework. So then, what should we be doing for the invisible risks? But before we go there, let's try to at least talk about a few of these invisible risks. And I'm not saying these are the only ones. Some of this takes, it takes its origins from my training in law, so which is why I've tried to put in some of that. But I know several of you may have many other areas of invisible risks. Today's presentation is not to give you an exhaustive understanding of what could be the potential invisible risks, but it is to give you an idea about what could be potential governance frameworks. But having said that, I'm not going to be able to give you an effective governance framework if we don't lay out some of the invisible risks, or at least some of the domains of potential invisible risks. So let's see from the beginning. The first one is AI and algorithmic. Yes, AI and algorithmic biases, concerns, opacity are existent today, but they are only going to be exasperated, aggravated in the days and in the years to come, particularly because of more model opacity. We don't really know how these models have been developed, or it could be liability when it comes to agentic AI, or it could also be accountability gaps, not just within organizations, but also within the legal frameworks on how this accountability will be assigned to different persons. So we have that. And the next one is on cloud and infrastructure. Of course, it is a shared responsibility, but that also means that there are several risks. There can also be configuration drift. There can be multi-cloud sprawl. All of these are real concerns. The third one, so, is something that I want to spend some time on. It's called data sovereignty. And I know it's a word, it's a term that's being thrown around quite frequently in today's discussions. Data sovereignty is the concept of who holds the data, who has the power over the data. And many times it's always conflated, it's confused with where the data is located. In my opinion, in my understanding of it, I would say, yes, the location is important, but it's even more important to see how a particular organization or a particular entity has access to that data through data governance frameworks. So the first thing, when we talk about data sovereignty, the concerns could be cross-border flows. Does the country allow data to flow between one country to another? If so, are there restrictions on that data flows? How do you maneuver those restrictions? Now, these are not anticipatory issues. These are issues that we are currently facing. And I'm trying to say that this will be what organizations and individuals will be facing more so in the years to come, particularly with all countries adopting a data protection legislation, including in Sri Lanka. There is a comprehensive data protection legislation. It's called the Personal Data Protection Act. It's not yet in force. The act has already been passed. And the other one is localization laws. There can be laws that mandate that data should be stored only within a particular country. And that could certainly raise concerns about how you conduct business and how can you enable cross-border data flows. And related to that is data residency, where although they may not say that you have to store data in a particular country, there may not be a specific law, but some laws will simply say that you have to have a copy of this, or you should only maintain copies of this in this particular place, in this physical premise, for instance. So that's also something that needs to be should be a concern for teams that are working in this space. And the next one is supply chain. And in supply chain, I know there can be a lot of technical concerns, but I'm going to look at certain legal concerns. For example, what are the vendor risks when they deal with other third parties? What are the risks of liability? Who will be responsible for what? And also about fourth party exposure. There will be others who will be affected. What happens when there is such impact? And finally, this point on regulatory arbitrage. So you must have heard of arbitrage in other concepts, including in the financial world, where you try to, look at the advantage that you gain when you buy today and sell tomorrow. Similarly, in the regulatory space, we increasingly find organizations looking for countries where the laws are more favorable for them. When I say laws are more favorable, they would prefer to work in jurisdictions where they believe that the laws are investor friendly, or the laws are friendly for innovation, or where there is lesser regulation that they believe would be encouraging to innovation. So there can be concerns of jurisdiction shopping, which means just moving from one country to another, trying to find where is the country that they want to do business in, simply because from a legal perspective, that affords them a certain ease. There can also be conflicting laws. While it's easy to say that they will opt for the law that is most beneficial for them, what is important to note that in today's world, it's hardly a situation where a business functions within only one country. It's always multi-jurisdictional. There are many countries and many laws involved. How will those conflicts be looked at, and how will they be reviewed, and how will they be remedied? That is certainly a risk. And of course, enforcement gaps. Yes, there may be laws, but enforcement and implementation is very varying and can be, again, a challenge. On that note, we'll just go to the next slide on looking at AI risk, the governance blind spot. So yes, I did tell you the 5 domains of invisible risk, but what about the governance blind spot? What happens where you understand that, yes, we know all of this, but what really is the governance blind spot? If that is your question, then here are some of the answers. See, hallucination and misinformation, model bias, lack of explainability, shadow AI, or even adversarial attacks are all AI risks, which many of you already know about. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But also note that there is a corresponding legal and regulatory response for both. For example, in some countries, there can be a legislation on artificial intelligence itself. And I can give you an example of one regional law. The EU has its own AI Act, and it is a phased implementation. So yes, many parts of it will come into effect at different times. And the next one is also on the AI Basic Act, which is legislation in South Korea that was passed earlier this year. And even if the country does not have a legislation on AI, there could also be data protection legislations. We call them personal data protection legislations. And we have examples of that even in Sri Lanka. So we have that. And the other one can be when it comes to AI principles that are global principles, and that there are also requirements that have to be complied with. Now, you may think that these are just global principles, but it's not really the case, because many countries have signed these particular adoptions. It can be the UNESCO AI ethics principles or the OECD principles. All of this have human oversight requirement. And there are also ISO standards that can be looked into, frameworks like the NIST on AI risk management framework, etc. Now, these can be potential legal or regulatory response for these specific risks. I'm not going to say that this is everything. This covers all of the potential risks, but I believe that this is a great starting point to look at it from a legal and regulatory response point of view. But like we have already established, sometimes the risks are so varied from what really the law is, simply because the technology advances at a very, very rapid pace. In that sense, what do? We have to look at other options. And the next one is on data sovereignty. I did mention it quite briefly, and I'll just go into it just in this particular slide. It's on the invisible border. So really, the data sovereignty question is about where really your data is situated. Cloud storage, what happens is it spans multiple jurisdictions. It's not just one country, spans multiple jurisdictions, and which means that a company in Colombo may store its data in Singapore, and that can be processed in Frankfurt. The question then is, who owns it? Are we going to talk about the Sri Lanka PDPA, or are we going to talk about the EU GDPR, or are we also going to look at maybe the company is registered in India? So then are we looking at the laws in India? And this means that we are trying to create competing ownership claims and also transfer restrictions. So this is a concern. And there's also a concern of who can access it. In some countries, there can be government access orders. And that can also be quite challenging for organizations. And really, which means what are your obligations? The obligation should be to comply with the relevant data protection, that is the Personal Data Protection Act. It can be in terms of data minimization, purpose limitation, or retention rules. Since this is not a session on personal data protection, I'm not going into it. But if there are any questions on personal data protection, particularly the personal data protection in Sri Lanka, I'm very happy to answer them during the Q&A. And the next one is on supply chain when it comes to the invisible risks, where you have a vendor, there is a sub-vendor, there's a fourth party, and there are exposures for that. So, which means that the contracts with the direct vendor rarely capture these other people in the supply chain. So what happens because the contracts are not capturing that effectively? It could mean that there are fourth party risks like vendor, etc. And that is not mapped, let alone being monitored. And there's also a legal issue when it comes to how you're able to claim any sort of immunity for any breaches that have been occurred at the third party end. Or how are you also able to claim any liability from those third or fourth parties who are involved in the process? Because this is not sufficiently addressed in supplier agreements. And the other one is really about the regulatory patchwork, right? So now it's easy to talk about technology law as, like it exists in a data vacuum, but it hardly ever does. There are so many legislations and there are various countries involved, which means that we have various regulatory requirements that need to be complied with, and it's not really so easy and straightforward. I've just given a snapshot of a few here. We are not going into it because I did mention a few of this, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to come back to this particular slide. So now let's come to the core of today's presentation on really what should be the governance framework for invisible risks. This is just my suggestion. It can be in any which way that you believe you want to have it. But what I would highly recommend is that please make sure that the governance framework anticipates, it identifies, and then you can have your own systems to assess, to respond, and embed. But it's crucial that you have these pillars of governance in place to make sure that the risks are anticipatory, that you're able to anticipate these risks, and also even if you're not able to anticipate them at a later point, you're able to identify some of that and still be able to respond in an effective manner. First one is anticipate, pillar one. How do we proceed with the anticipation? When I say we have to anticipate the risks, what I mean is that there should be ways and means for us to be able to look at it and assess it. And how do we anticipate this? First, through threat intelligence. It can be through red team exercises. It can be regulatory horizon scanning and technology watching. All of this are just not terms, but I want to at least mention a little bit on regulatory horizon scanning, which means that we are able to monitor legislative pipelines across key jurisdictions. And there are so many ways to do it, including having teams within your own organization check these. And there are so many yardsticks to be able to assess what's happening in different countries that you operate in. And also to make sure that organizations, particularly in the private sector, participate in public consultations for developing of laws. It is such an integral part of ensuring that you're actually involved in the process, because it's not just about keeping track of the law once the law is passed, but also to meaningfully participate when a law is being formulated. And a great example of that is in the Sri Lankan context, we have an Online Safety Act, and the Online Safety Act was not subjected to enough public consultation, and that's why there was a lot of criticism for it. So it's important that public consultation is not only limited to civil society organizations or to certain groups, but it should be widespread, and it should certainly include the private sector and the industry people, because they will be the ones who are in the process. So I want to make a plea to everyone joining in from Sri Lanka that we are going to have a cyber security legislation. There's been a bill that has been pending for a long time. It's important that you look at it and also participate in the process, because that is where the law will really be shaped. The other points that I want to make are what I call as technology watching, because you keep track of emerging technology for governance implication before deployment. That is what I mean by anticipate. So do not just make sure that you have the technology and then consider about what could be the governance issues, but please keep track of these so that at a later point you're able to assess what really are the concerns, because you already know about it, you know what to anticipate, and then you deploy those technologies. And I know the speaker before me as well, Ms. Deepti Monga, also mentioned this point, and I was fortunate enough to hear a few of her points, and I completely agree with that, because it's important to know where you're headed before you actually deploy those technologies. The next pillar is to really identify, right? When I say identify, I mean there should be continuous discovery and dynamic risk mapping. And when I say continuous discovery, dynamic risk mapping, what I try to say is you cannot really manage invisible risks if they remain unknown. Yes, they are invisible. At some point, they have to be risks that you are bringing within your own governance framework so that you are able to deal with them in the manner that is most suitable for your organization. So it can be AI and data set discovery. It can be risk mapping techniques. It can also be governance triggers. All of this will help you identify. In my opinion, anticipating and then moving towards identifying are very crucial, and they form parts of two parts of the same coin. Really, when you move from discovery to mapping and then having a governance trigger, it is already an established line, and it is through which you're able to have a governance framework that is meaningful within your own organization. I'll give you one example. It can be when it comes to AI and machine learning models, when you have an inventory of all models in production. How do you risk map that? Please have a threat modeling framework for it. And then when it goes to governance, you will know that every new technology deployment, no matter what it is, will have to go through the requirements that are mentioned therearound. Okay, so I hope that will really clear it, because you will have some sort of a new technology deployment checklist, and that can really support you. Another one can be training data sources. I am a firm believer that we have to look at and we have to monitor the training data, because that is so crucial to how really the model functions. So map your training data and its lineage, which then moves to risk mapping techniques, where you have your data flow diagrams for privacy risks. This also means that at any point in time, you will have a review of the laws, and you will also be able to know that these are the laws. Is this something that is violating this? Is there a requirement for us to probably not collect this data, or are we able to collect this data with the existing consent mechanisms? That can be a great example. I'm going to just stop here and check with Rumandi about the time I have. I know there have been some messages, but I'm not really following it. Ms. Rumandi, how long do I have? I don't want to
No,
go over my
you
time.
can continue, Ashwini. That's fine.
Okay. So I'll just, I'm not going to take too much time, or just about 10 minutes. I will wrap this up.
Yeah, no problem.
And pillar 3 is really to assess. When I say assess, I'm asking for quantification, prioritization, and impact analysis. Now, it may seem counterintuitive, because I'm talking about identifying and I'm also talking about assessing. At the same time, we are saying it's invisible risk. It is not counterintuitive. What we're trying to do is here have a risk assessment matrix. And through that matrix, we have what are high impact, medium impact, and low impact. It doesn't mean just because something is mentioned as low impact, it need not deserve any attention. We are just trying to have a different risk assessment framework because it's lower impact. And we try to have a different risk assessment framework in the sense that the assessment framework remains, but the manner in which we deal with them will be the one that will be different. So the matrix will help you put the given whatever the risks are into certain context. You do know that this is particularly high or critical impact, but at the same time you will know that yes, something is medium impact, but in some respects it's still high impact, so I need to give this a certain level of importance. Yes, something is low impact, but it does not mean that at a different point it will move to something that is higher impact. So what we have to do is when we look at assessment approaches for this pillar, you assign probability and impact scores, but you also update it quarterly as a threat landscape shifts. And this is why I keep saying that it's important for governance frameworks to be agile because the technology is so fast. It's so fast when it comes to its development. It's changing every single day. And perhaps if we were to have this discussion in 6 months or even early next year, this will be different from what we are having, what the discussions we have today. Which is why a quarterly update is something that I would recommend and suggest. The next one is scenario analysis to see what really can be the worst case invisible risks. If there's AI failure, there's supply chain breach, etc. And the third one is on a legal risk assessment. And for me, this is so central to having a risk assessment framework. Mapping your regulatory obligations to the current controls is step one. Step two is to then identify those compliance gaps and also look at the liability exposure. Perhaps at this point in time, in wherever the country you're joining in, there is no specific AI act, AI legislation, a law for AI. If that is the case, it doesn't mean that you don't have anything for legal risk assessment. That's certainly not the case. What you have to do is, yes, you may not have one, but there can be other laws that can impact the particular AI offering, including data protection legislation. So that's where you have to map your legal risks and not only look at direct relevance, but also say application from a practical standpoint. And continuous monitoring. I can't stress this enough that we need to have real-time risk indicators from threat feeds, regulatory alerts, and vendor health scores. Pillar 4 is to respond. Yes, we are always talking about governance, but what really is a governance framework without a proper response plan? So we need to have adaptive controls, legal playbooks, and a real-time governance decision-making scheme. So how does that work? So you have to have demands from you. You will be needing legal, technical, and governance teams to be working together, and they have to work in concert. And how will that happen? First, there has to be a detection. There has to be escalation about what can be done. There has to be containment, and then you learn from what really happened. This is no different from what you do for a cybersecurity breach. But in this case, all we are saying is just make sure that we have a team that is interdisciplinary. And when I say we, I'm referring to all governance individuals who are involved. And I think they will all agree with me, or those in compliance risk teams will all agree with me that it's just not the role or requirement of just one team, one unit, but it is across different teams and particularly across different specialities. Finally, embed. When I say embed, I mean that you have to have a culture of accountability and continuous learning. That's when governance functions optimally. And governance is not really a document, it's a behavior. And invisible risks are not only are only managed and efficiently and effectively managed when every person in the organization understand their role in the framework. So for me, this particular embedding slide is of supreme importance. So no matter where you are, you have to have this. And just because we put it as pillar 5, it doesn't mean this is the last, but it's basically where we start. This is non-negotiable. There has to be continuous education within the organization, wherever it is. There has to be accountability structures. We have the data protection officer, it could be the CISO, however it is. And there has to be a focus on governance by design. Governance by design is meaningless if we don't have metrics and reporting. And when we have all of this, we move towards a culture of transparency. And really, to say that your concern, your organization has a mature model, it means that you have moved from reactive to anticipatory. And that really is the goal of today's presentation, for you to state that, yes, we are not just reacting to what happens, but we have anticipatory governance in place. And it is possible to do that if some of these pillars are taken into account. I would say take all these 5 pillars. You can tailor it to suit your requirements, but these are some of the basics that every organization has to start with. And really, I want to say about privacy by design before I wind up, because I know when I talk about embedding privacy by design, organizations will say that, oh, is that just a best practice? The answer is no. It's a legal imperative. When it first came about, when it was discussed in 2009, it was considered as a foundational principle through various mechanisms. But right now, data protection legislations actually lay these as statutory requirements. So privacy by design is just not some nice to have requirement, but it is also a legal imperative in several countries. So technology and law meet, and that's where I believe that it is essential to keep in mind that these are concerns where the lines are blurred between what really is a tech problem and what really is an AI problem. And I want to just wind up by saying that SheLeadsTech is an extremely important platform, particularly because we have an increasing trend of women in cybersecurity roles, still quite low in my opinion. It can be so much better, but whenever women have been included in the process, we found the teams to be more effective because they are diverse and they don't look at it from just a homogeneous perspective. And they've also proven that organizations are able to look at governance structures more effectively and efficiently. And really, there is no justification of why we should be having more women in this space. But I believe that some of these data will assist with that. So invisible risks are real, and how your organization has responses for it to make it visible, accountable, and ahead of its curve is what will set your organization apart from those who are already operating in the space. So on a concluding note, try to map, upskill, adopt, connect, and then lead. And when I say connect, I mean do not work in silos, work with all the teams, speak to all the teams, because that's when you'll be able to have a system that works for all. And of course, when I say lead, each of you are leaders in your own right. So from where you are, from individual professionals, that's when governance becomes a reality. Thank you. I know you may have many questions, and I hope you have many questions. We can discuss this further. For those of you who want to connect with me after today, you can find me on LinkedIn. So do connect with me, and I'll be happy to speak to any of you if you have any questions, even offline. But I would highly recommend you ask questions now. So I think I can stop sharing, but Ruandi, if there are any questions on the slides, and I'll still continue to share the slides.
Sure. Thank you, Ashwini.
Thank you.
You may post any questions from the audience. If you have anything to clarify with Ashwini, it's time for you. So until such time they come up with questions, Ashwini, I have something to clarify with you.
Sure.
So as we transition from a risk by design in the 2020s to anticipatory governance for the new era, what specific skills and roles do you believe will become more critical for our leadership teams?
See, the first thing that we have to understand is that the existing roles will have to function differently. If we are going to consider new roles, yes, there's definitely a possibility of that. But let's start with the existing roles and how we can optimally work with them. And for existing roles to operate, optimally, there is necessity for a more interdisciplinary requirement. That's number one. The second one is, when I say we need to upskill to understand the risks. So there will certainly be necessity for trainings, and there will also be necessity to consider, for instance, AI governance as a real threat and not as something that is hypothetical in nature. So as a new role, AI governance may emerge even more in a more pronounced way. But outside of that, existing roles have to work with each other. And secondly, existing roles also have to upskill, because it's not just a new role will be created. There could be situations where your role is no longer needed. So which is why you have to upskill the existing persons while you also have to bring in new persons or new experts in that area. I'm not denying the possibility that there could be areas where the existing professionals can upskill.
Thank you for that. Yes, I 100% agree with you on how the involvement has to happen in this case. So how do we foster in a culture where employees at all levels understand their role in mitigating risks that are becoming increasingly invisible?
So if we want to bring in a culture of transparency and a culture of, like, proactive governance, first we have to move away, and I've said it in my slides as well, from the mindset of reactive response. To just say that we will react, if there is a threat, we will react to it. And I believe that the boards play a really important role. The leadership within organizations play a really important role, because the first question that I know many boards are asking, if we have, let's say, a governance framework for AI, is this a legal requirement? Is there a law that mandates this? Is there a direction that mandates this? So we are still looking at doing the bare minimum. If we are still looking at doing the bare minimum, we are not going to reach any level of meaningful governance. We have to move away from that. And for that, I really think it's important for the boards to understand it. And also all the persons just involved in the management, can be senior management, mid-level, and also every organization, every single officer has to understand that we cannot simply be satisfied with doing the bare minimum. We have to do better. And that, I think, can be a great incentive for the public to have trust in the particular organization. How do you build digital trust? How do you build public trust? It can happen when you have these governance frameworks that go beyond the bare minimum.
Do you think there will be any policy development for this effect, or what is your perspective in
Okay,
that?
so I think certainly when it comes to legislating on artificial intelligence, countries are still considering about how they want to legislate it, because they're also worried about stifling innovation. And so if we are only going to look at the law, I believe we'll still be areas where there'll be countries which are not going to immediately legislate. But that does not mean that we have to stop at not doing what we have to do, because these challenges have real world impact. I always say that the reason for having governance is not just some imaginary, some hypothetical scenario, but these have real world impact and real people get affected by it. So if we wait for it, if we wait for some regulatory response and do it, then we are still very late. But to answer your question from another perspective, will there be any policy updates? I think there will at least be policies in South Asia, in countries that I have seen. There's a push towards that. And we also have data protection legislations, personal data protection legislation. At least the one in Sri Lanka specifically looks at reviewing automated decisions. So there is something on that. But that's only on AI. There are other invisible risks that some we can already look at through existing laws, like, for example, deep fake can be looked at with the Online Safety Act, etc. But not everything will be covered within the existing laws. But there could be policy updates on this.
Okay, so I have two more questions for you. I think the audience doesn't have anything to ask from you. So in the response stage where you discussed about the anticipation, identification, the framework, you mentioned adaptive controls and real-time governance. If you can please share an example of how traditional organizations have successfully transitioned from static controls to these more fluid real-time transactions, if you can.
Okay, so let's look at, for example, because my area of work is on data protection, right? So in data protection, personal data protection, one of the requirements is to get customer consent, okay, before you use their data for any which purpose. I mean, there can be other ways you can use data, but let's, for our example, take consent. Now, one static control can be, yes, we have obtained consent, and you put that, you frame that, you keep that in one document, that yes, we have obtained consent, we are using it. Now, that consent could have been obtained maybe, 5 years or 10 years ago, but you're still relying on that same particular control. You're saying, yes, we are looking at consent. Yes, it's there. But I would suggest we have to have a more, adaptive system. For example, have revolving consent where periodically there is an opportunity for those individuals to review their consent, or even to say that they no longer want to consent, if they want to withdraw that consent. How is that possible if we just set in stone and say there's this only going to be that one specific form and we are going to use that?
Okay, thank you. So one more question on the integration part. So when you take all the 4 stages, what do you see as being neglected most often, and how that neglect compromise effectiveness of an entire framework?
Right. So can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Yeah. So out of the 4 stages that we discussed about, anticipate, identify, assess, and respond, which one do you think is most neglected, and how can it affect the...
Okay, the basically pillar 5, right, which is on the 5th one. Yes. So I would definitely talk about embedding, because the minute I say training, awareness, education, there's just a switch that goes off. Everyone would be like, yeah, that we do. We don't need to worry about it. That's there. It's given least priority. But for me, without embedding that culture of transparency, without having continuous monitoring, without having that awareness, we are not going to be having any of the ones that I spoke before. Yes, you can have a response team, but what if nobody is really aware of it? There'll still be only few people who are looking at it. It will not be from an organizational level. So while I put embed at the very end, even when I said that, when I opened that slide, I said it is of supreme importance to us, right? Because it is the one that we tend to take very lightly and easily. We believe that, yes, it can easily be overcome. We can do it. Just, yes, we'll have, we have 2 training sessions a month. That is not enough. And in the sense that it's not about just having 2 training sessions. It's about making it something that will make a mark on how the particular individual or the professional functions. Will it have a change? Will it have the transformative impact that you're looking for? And that requires organizational level shift and cultural shift as well, in terms of the organization's culture, to be able to do that. And embedding that will go a long way in achieving all of the ones that I mentioned before that.
Thank you, Ashwini. It was very insightful, and how you shared your experiences and the knowledge that was brought in is very useful. And thank you so much. Thanks for being part of the day-to-day. Okay, so with that, we will be taking a short break, and we will resume at 10:45. So don't leave us, but be with us. We are going into some different discussions. Speakers are there to address some of the things that we are going through at the moment, the uncertainties, and also we would like to see you in just 15 minutes. So we'll resume soon. So with that, we are moving into our 3rd session. Our 3rd session is about privacy by design, embedding trust in a data-driven world, where we shift our focus to build trust and accountability in an increasingly data-driven environment. So our speakers for the 3rd session will be representing our Hong Kong chapter, Ms. Carol Lee and Ms. Victoria Tsang. Ms. Carol Lee is the ISACA SheLeadsTech Regional Advocate, Asia, and the Vice President of the ISACA China Hong Kong Chapter. She is well respected in the cybersecurity field, has been appointed to the appeal panel under the Hong Kong Protection of Critical Infrastructure Ordinance, and is a CISO board member of the Hong Kong Computer Society. Her accolades include the 2021 Global 100 Certified Ethical Hacker Hall of Fame, the 2016 Hong Kong Cybersecurity Professionals Awards, the 2023 Women in IT Asia Award, and CSO 50 Award. These awards reflect her dedication to ensuring cyberworld security and validate her expertise in the field. In addition to the above community service volunteer role, she is also leading the Hong Kong listed company's cybersecurity and risk management function. She has substantial experience leading enterprise-wide security programs to support cloud and digital transformation strategy, specializing in adopting proven change management methodology in the AI governance, security, and privacy management program. She has more than 25 years of working experience serving retail, insurance, supply chain, public entities, manufacturing, property development, and consultancy industries. Carol holds several information security and privacy designations, and she is also a certified change management practitioner. Miss Victoria Tsang. Miss Victoria Tsang is the ISACA SheLeadsTech Regional Advocate, Asia, the SheLeadsTech Committee Member of ISACA China, Hong Kong, the Young Professional Committee Member of the Institute of Internal Auditors, Hong Kong, and the Women in Technology Committee Member in Ernst & Young. She is also appointed as a Program Manager of the Taiko Women's Inspire Network, where she supports initiatives that empower women in technology and leadership. She is specialized in the cybersecurity field for her professional expertise and industry contributions. She holds a master's degree in information technology management from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. She has been invited as a guest speaker at the University of Hong Kong for 2 consecutive years during the Information Security and Personal Data Protection Week, where she presented on topics related to security, health, and privacy risks. In addition, she served as a guest lecturer for the course FinTech Cybersecurity and Risk Management, part of the Master of Finance in Financial Technology program at HKU Business School, sharing insights on the importance of cybersecurity in the FinTech sector. In addition to the above community service volunteer role, she is also manager in Ernst & Young Consulting Practice, specializing in technology risk and cybersecurity in financial services sector. She has over 7 years of experience with a focus on IT risk, privacy, governance, compliance review, electronic know your customer, digital asset, cloud, and independent security assessments for listed companies and financial service industries. She conducted privacy impact assessment for a notable client in the public sector in accordance with PDPO, GDPR, and HIPAA. Victoria holds several information security and privacy designations, and she is also a certified ISO 27001 Information Management Systems Internal Auditor. With that, I now invite Carol and Victoria to take the virtual stage. Over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Hello. So first of all, I think thanks everyone joining and Sri Lanka chapter inviting Carol and I to speak on piracy by design topic. I'm Victoria Tsang from ISACA China Hong Kong chapter SheLeadsTech committee. Yeah, in my full-time role, I'm specialized in technology risk and cybersecurity in financial service sector.
Hello, I'm Carol Lee. From the ISACA China Hong Kong chapters. I think Wendy has already introduced a little bit of my background. I don't repeat this, but I want to thank Wendy and Sri Lanka chapters again inviting Victoria and myself to speak on the privacy by design topics. So do my screen sharing on the slide deck work?
Yeah.
Okay, then I move on. Victoria, you can start.
Yeah.
So
before, okay. Before we dive into the heart of the our discussion, I want to set clear expectation for what we'll accomplish together over the next session. So think of next slide, please. I think of these observation, these objectives as your roadmap. So by the end of our time together, you will walk away with 9 concrete takeaways. First, you understand why privacy matters, not just a concept, but as a practical business critical issue in today's data-driven digital economy. And second, we will explore privacy by design. Yeah. So, and unpack its 7 foundational principles, and these principles are the backbone of modern privacy engineering. And third, we will learn how to apply privacy protection across the entire personal information lifecycle, from the very first moment data is connected all the way through to its final deletion. And fourth, we will discuss how to design effective notification and consent mechanism, including the often overlooked requirement of separate consents of distinct purpose. And also we will practice data minimization, not just in what we connect, but in how often we connect and how we request permission. And we will also differentiate the 3 critical data sanitization techniques. These are not just interchangeable terms, and also the distinction has real legal consequence. And also we will recognize privacy enhancing technologies, PETs, and understand where each one fit into your toolkits. And also last but not least, we will also identify common pitfalls and also anti-patterns that I see repeatedly in our real-world system, and we will draw the lessons from industry case studies that demonstrate how privacy can become a powerful competitive differentiator. Yeah. So next, here's how we will structure our journey today. Yeah. So you will see very fruitful. Yeah. So with this agenda set, we will tackle the most fundamental question first. Why privacy matters in a data-driven digital economy? Because if we don't get the motivation, why the technique won't stick. And then we will move into the introduction of privacy by design, and also a largest portion of our time we will spend on the protection across the personal information lifecycle. This is where theory meets practice. Yeah. After that, we will get into the common pitfalls and anti-patterns, the mistake I want you to avoid, and also some case study. Yeah, next, please. So why does privacy matter? In 2026, this is not just a theory, it's a very existing one for our industry. Let me walk through you the 4 focus that's reshaping the privacy landscape. So first, we are actually living through an multiplication of data connection points, and every Internet of Things device or every mobile app, every AI-powered service is creating new opportunities to capture personal information. You can imagine your smartwatch knows your heart rate, and your car know where you drive last weekend. So the connection points are not just going in linearly. They are actually going very fast, and every connection point is also a potential point of failure. And also a second is about customer expectation and trust. Actually, they may be demand transparency about how their data is used, and they expect their rights to be respected and protected. Trust, once lost, is actually very difficult to rebuild, and in a very competitive market, customers will similarly choose competitors or companies who handle their data with respect. And third, balancing innovation and security. This is actually the tension every organization here grapples with. We need to innovate AI, machine learning, and personalization. These all require data. Yeah, but we must do so lawfully, transparently, and securely. So the organization that will win this a lot are those that choose between innovation and piracy. But actually, they are the ones who realize that piracy enables innovation by maintaining the social license to operate with data. And fourth is about regulatory impact and also cost. Actually, GDPR penalties have reached into the hundreds of millions of those dollars. And also we are now have many global benchmark like CCPA, CPRA, and also LGBT and PIPL in China, and also the DPDP as in India, and also the financial penalties are actually very significant. But also the reputational damage often costs more than the fines itself. So you can imagine a piracy violation in 2026 is a board level events, and these four together: data exploitation and customer expectation and the regulatory pressure coverage to make the piracy not just important but actually mission critical. So how do we respond? This actually bring into our central concept of today's keynote. So next please. The what is the piracy by design? Let me give you the formal definition first. The piracy by design provide a robust and comprehensive approach to embed a piracy proactively into the design and operation of IT systems, infrastructure, and also business practice. So let me unpack what that really means in practice. Data processors and IT system providers, that's most of us in this room, should design our service with a strong focus on data minimization and also piracy-friendly default settings. And the goal is to ensure that the only data strictly necessary for delivering the service is processed. This is what we call the principle of purpose limitation. That's a concept we'll return to. And also think about that for a moment. Most of the system today are built the opposite way. We connect everything we can and store it indefinitely and figure out later what to do with it. And piracy by design actually inverts that mindset. So first is about the proactive mindset. We must anticipate piracy risk before they materialize, not just react after a breach, but the time you are issuing like a press release about data incidents, the damage will be done, and also the trust is broken. So the fines are coming, and piracy by design asks you to think like a attacker and like regulators during the design of phase, but not after. Very important. And the second is about systematic integration. Actually, piracy must be built into the architecture, the code, and also the processes, and also the governance at every layer. It's like the security. You can't do it ineffectively, and it must be working into the system from day one. And the third is about the trust multiplier. This is actually piracy by design transform piracy from a compliance burden into a strategic assets. When you do piracy well, actually customer trust you more. And when your customers trust you more, they share more data willingly. And when they share more data willingly, you may get a better insight and better product. So can be you can imagine a cycle. So piracy done wise will be a factor for your business growth. So who came up with this concept? So next is about before we get into 7 principles of piracy by design itself, I want to grant us in the regulatory context, because piracy by design does not exist in a vacuum. It operates alongside formal data protection principles in law. I will use GDPR's 7 data protection principle as our reference, because GDPR remains the most influential global benchmark, and most modern piracy laws have inherent its DNA. And principle 1, you can see the lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. You must process data in that way. And under GDPR Article 6, you need a valid legal basis, consent, contract, and also legitimate interest, and so on. And you must communicate clearly with data subject about what you are doing. And principle 2, purpose limitation. Collect data for specific explicit and legitimate purpose. You can't collect data for one reason and then repurpose it quietly for another. If you connected an email for delivering confirmation, you can't suddenly use for marketing with our legal basis. And principle 3 is about data minimization. Connect only what is adequate, relevant, and limited to what is necessary. Yeah. So also principle 4, accuracy. Keep personal data accurate and up to date, and take reasonable steps to erase or correct inaccurate data without any delay. And also principle 5, storage limitation. Keep data in an identifiable form only as long as necessary. Yeah. So it means extended storage is permitted for archiving, researching, or some statistics purpose, but only with appropriate control and set retention policies and some automate deletion. Yeah, and also principle 6, integrity and confidentiality. Yeah, process data with appropriate security measures, protecting against unauthorized access, loss, destruction, or damage. And accountability, principle 7, the data controller must demonstrate compliance with all of these principles, maintain records, and conduct impact assessment, etc. Yeah. So next. Yeah, so next, 7 principle of privacy by design were actually originally formulated by Dr. the former Information and Privacy Commissioner of Canada. These principles have stood the test of time and allow reference globally, even formally adopted as international standards. So let me walk you through each one. Like principle 1, proactive, not reactive. Anticipates, identify, and prevents piracy events before they happen. This law about responding to a breach is about preventing them by design. And principle 2, piracy as the default is very important. The strongest piracy setting should apply automatically. And principle 3, embedded in design, piracy is an essential component of core functionality being delivered, not just an add-on, not a patch. And full functionality. This reject the force of piracy versus functionality. Yeah. And also end-to-end security lifecycle protection. Piracy requires security across the entire data lifecycle, connection, storage, processing, sharing, and deletion. And principle 6, visibility and transparency. Conduct all business practice, system operation, and data processing lifecycle in a manner that is open to and also independently verifiable. Because transparency is not just a slogan, it is a verification mechanism. Yeah. And also principle 7, respect for user privacy and keep it user-centric. Yeah. Yeah. And so now please look at the message at the bottom of this slide, but make sure you are also across on both, not only either one. Yeah. So see, Carol, can you share more your real life experience on piracy by design to the audience next? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Victoria. Well, after listening to Victoria's explanation of those principles, I guess the first question that you have in your mind is, where should I start? How should I start privacy by design for a new system, new process? So the easiest and most logical path is thinking through the personal information lifecycle. So security by design is the fundamental, which I do not have extensive time today to cover them all. I will spend more time to cover the additional privacy design area should not. So take a membership program as an example. So before a system asks a new member to fill in personal information during registration, a privacy notice should explain what information is supposed to be collected and why it's needed to collect and obtain the consensus. So be sure to collect only minimal information when necessary, not over collect. So some principle that just mentioned about by Victoria just right now, in fact, we're trying to apply here when we're starting to do the design. So don't have a mentality that I do not need ID card information now, but let's get it first, as I might need it in the future. This is absolutely not acceptable in all privacy law. So when you're doing the privacy impact assessment, you first think about like on this type of how you get this, the minimal information, what you need to be collect and to do the consents. So obviously the definition of personal information ages for a child may vary across country. So for example, some country will treat a computer IP address as personal information. So pay attention to check where is your system will be servicing in the region that with privacy law. So, okay, once you register, you will store the member information, but you have to pay attention where is your data physically will be stored and where you access the data. As some countries require regulatory permission for cross-border data transfer. So you must pay attention into this on the law perspective. So just right now, Victoria has also mentioned about the storage retention limit. So you want to set from here that how long we want to keep the data and set some schedule to remove any expired data as well. So next, when you want to start to use the member information, I want to highlight the extra personal data sanitization or anonymization design we will need. We will cover it more later in next few slides. But most important that you must have a channel next for any privacy inquiry or complaint from your members. No matter it's through emails, through telephone or online chat. This channel should be put on your privacy notice when you get the member first enroll in. So let them know about how you will arrange all this type of complaint. And if the member information will be shared to any third party, state clearly to the member that during registration with whom you will share the data and for what purpose. And in China, even that will require all public SDK that you use in your system will need to be disclosed on the privacy notice as well. And some country, when they're talking about third party, they will, even though defining third party sharing and trusted party as two different types of third party sharing. So that's type of definition that you must be clearly understand from the law requirement perspective. Finally, if a member wishes to withdraw the membership, that means the purpose is no longer valid. You must delete and anonymize related information in according to the retention period stay in your privacy notice. No matter hard copy, soft copy, even though those data shared to the third party. So in next few slides, I will share more detailed best practice when handling consents, data minimization, and data sanitization. So when you start designing how to collect consents, first understand whether the relevant privacy law require explicitly consents, separate consents in your service region. So no-brainer privacy best practices implementing explicit consent. That means you do not put a default tag or default consents to accept the data being collected. The members must take an action to indicate consents. And for separate consents, as illustrated in the website that on the right-hand side, that with this sample of consents box, separate consents will be used when there's regulatory for information for different purposes to require to list it separately, or ideally with a choice to opt in or opt out on each individually. So you will see that analytics, tracking, marketing, remarketing are all stated separately here, and for people to choose opt in or opt out. So with that, you can agree or consent only part of them. Basically, that means they are not necessary function when you're visiting this website. So for separate consent that you implement, you can either implementing through separate checkbox on the same page, like the sample one that show here, or you can be setting different pop-up window with a checkbox for each of the separate consents required. Or even though sometimes in the process perspective, it's not an online system, it can be an offline. So you also need a separate tick box and signature on the paper when you're collecting this type of separate consents. So the condition required to separate consents vary from country to country, such as in China, when you have data cross borders, facial recognition, public area monitoring, collecting data for public disclosure, all require separate consents. So one particular part that you might need to be paying attention is for minority. So some country on minority handling, they will need more further type of consents, or even though another explicit consent or separate consents required. Like, for example, in China, this separate consent is not only from the minor or the kid's perspective, but their parent need to be provided consents on behalf of the kids. So that is something that on your design on the system, when collecting consents and checking people about their age, you need to really think about how you can check people's going in, they are really adult kids or not. So something that more on the design that you need to think about if you are intentionally serving children. And data minimization is even simpler, easier concept. So first, collect when direct need. Directly need means the product or services cannot be delivered without such information. So if you have full name, should not be collect. If you collecting nickname is already good enough when you're addressing the peoples. Miss Lee, Miss Tsang, that will be already good enough. So ID card number should not be collected if collecting phone number can already serve as the unique ID for your member. So second, the frequency of collecting personal information should be as minimal as possible. For example, don't plan to update marital status or have a child every year to your members. So prompt the member to update this information profile only if some transaction may indicate that their status has changed, or use a voucher to encourage member to voluntarily update their profile. Third, minimal permission requests. So same as item 1 that we just mentioned, add permission to get mobile contact list, permission to your mobile camera should not be requested if you not require them. So precise location, precise GPS location is sensitive personal information because you will know exactly where is the person is located. So keep it minimal to the city and region if possible, instead of collecting this precise GPS location. So tips for you to do the auditing: don't just rely on fill-in information to assess what information is now collecting. Check out the application API, SDK, telemetry, because they can collect device data in the background, no matter like what I mentioned, the IP address. Some even will collect the MAC address of the mobile device. So these are all very sensitive information that in some country referring. So data standardization technique, in fact, is the most we adopt when you want to achieve pseudo anonymization, de-identification, or anonymization. So when we do pseudo anonymization, we basically replace the personal information in another token. So that means in some country, GDPR specifically is a reversible technique. That means you can trace back what is the exact data after you know how to turn the token back into the real data. The identification, that means it just basically replace the ID card number with another ID. So again, even though the ID card removed it, as long as you have the re-identification that can help to associate that person, you have another ID number assigned to that person that help to map back to specific person perspective. So re-identification is still possible, even though some ID number removed based on a few of different elements of sensitive information. Like, for example, in a company, all the staff are based in Hong Kong or come from Hong Kong, but there is one foreigner that's coming from Germany. So without naming that particular person name, just based on the originated country, passport country, then you will basically know which person that it is. So re-identification is possible in that case. So anonymization is basically talking about really statistically irreversible. So there's no way to find that the exact person is. So that is the anonymization technique. So anonymization is the most preferred tactics in privacy law, as data cannot even be treated as personal information, but in real life business, anonymized data can make the data no value at all. Taking membership data that we have the example just we mentioned. Can you imagine that you can contact a member without the contact information like his full phone number, email address? So your design has to take into the consideration your business process when choosing among all this type of data sanitization technique. So this table here lists 6 different sanitization methods with altogether 15 techniques here. Some of them can be used when you're handling storage to achieve anonymization or the identification purpose. For example, when you're sharing salary information of your member to third party. So you can use this bucketization technique to prevent sharing the salary number, but only including like high, medium, low salary range. So, or you can use this free disturbance techniques to anonymize hide information of members. Given that mostly hide information is not a single piece of information for member profiling when you're doing all different type of marketing campaign purpose. So when I need to generate a management report that probably downloading data out of the system, sending emails, offline perspective, I may want to consider using the aggregation technique can be used because I can only keep the average data of in the management report no need to including individual members' data in that purpose. So in many situations, collecting personal information is unavoidable for business purpose, but it does not mean that they should be accessible by everyone. So you can start to using rounding, truncating, top level, bottom coding, this type of technique, so that you can try to make the access or display apply on the display, so that it will be less information will be sold. And for example, call center. Call center, when we're verifying members, probably they don't need the full ID card number. They only need last 4 digits of an ID card number, birth date, month only of the birthday to validate the identity. So that means we do not allow call center to view the full ID card number and full birthday anytime. We just display them partially of the information using different type of technique that will be best fit. In short, for every piece of personal information collect, think carefully in your design which group of user need read or write access to each data element. The level of full PI disclosure is really necessary or not. This will guide you to choose the appropriate data sanitization technique. And you will be able to imagine by using this, that's will help to coming back into some of the principles that are mentioned by Victoria in the no matter for data protection or privacy by design perspective. But first of all, when you really start on doing programming, start on the designing, try to understand more, collect more requirements first. That will help you to make through this design much more easier. So for privacy professional, you should have heard of privacy enhanced technology, PET, PET. There are a few of those typically mentioned while you are reading privacy by design and engineering textbook. That's what I list here. However, I tell you the reality is the adoption of PETs is still relatively limited. Most enterprises are just experimenting in niche or high-risk domain rather than deploy them broadly. So the most common scenario include secure health and financial data analysis, federated learning for cross organization collaboration, synthetic data for AI purpose, and confidential computing in sector like telecom or public service. If you are interested in knowing more practical consideration and application of PECs, I suggest you read ISACA white paper. It's named Exploring Practical Consideration and Application for Privacy Enhanced Technology. It gives each of these techniques with more example application in real life perspective, and also explain each of them in very detail how it's technically referred. So Victoria, pass over back to you to talk more about common pitfall and case study.
Okay, thank you, Carol. So now let's talk about what back looks like. These 8 anti-patterns are the failure modes I see in real-world system. Recognize them. First, over connection. We might lead it later mindset. Actually, unused fields are not a future assets. They are present liabilities. That means the budget data you were not using still cost you. And the second, hash user ID are not anonymous. Reversible tokens may still trigger full GDPR obligations. And the third, piracy is legal only. The legal will handle each check, and piracy policy do not protect data, and system do, and piracy life include log contract. And the fourth, free form PII in AI forms. These the factors are going big factor of 2 to 6. Employees are passing customer data into the public AI tools, and you need DLP controls and enterprise AI with contractual data protection now. And the fifth are 100 of marketing SDKs. Each sub-processor with its own risk profile. If you don't know who processes your data, it's not compliance process. And six, actually production deletion does not matter if backup are survive forever, and you need cryptographic and or retention aware backup design. And seven, shadow data. PII ignores warehouse, third-party SaaS, never inventories, and never govern. You can't protect what you do not know exists. And eight, this is the most insider one. Cookies, banners with p-check bosses, like accepted all highlight in bright colors, while reject all in gray color or requires like many clicks. And dark patterns are dressed up as a choice. We have seen massive files specifically targeting this kind of deceptive consent UX. And if your consent flows will be kind of embarrassing to demo to a regulator, it is not kind of consent. So you may try to think about how many of these exist in your organization right now, and finding them in is the step one. Yeah. So next, may go to the case study. Let me show you what happens when a company engineer is. Yeah. You know, these company, Apple, and 6 patents actually worth our study. Yeah, on-demand intelligence, voice, face, and photo AI once on the device, and data that never leaves can't be breached. Yeah, and also defensible piracy. Some noise enables aggregates insights without identifying individuals. So pass in production at a massive scale. And also the app tracking transparency. Like opt-in tracking reshape the entire advertising industry overnight. And one piracy decision actually billions in market impact. Yeah. And also piracy relay. And also private cloud compute, because auditable stateless server-side AI. One device guarantees at cloud scale, and hide my email, precise disposable addresses, and data minimization as a custom consumer feature. Yeah, so 5 lessons for everyone in this room, like piracy that feel effortless to user request deep architectural investment, and also piracy, marketing piracy only works if engineering can back it up, and also hardware and OS control actually unknown patterns pure SaaS can't match, and also transparent technical white paper actually build the trust, and piracy actually can reshape competitive dynamics across an entire industry. Yeah. So this is the case study lesson learned I want to share. Yeah. So next, I will summarize the key takeaway. If you remember, nothing else, remember these 10 actually very important. Like piracy is a strategic asset, not a compliance burden, and also be proactive, not reactive, and also engineering piracy. Don't just document it. Yeah, and also protect the full life cycle, and not just the consent screen. And consent must be explicit and also informed. Level p-check, and also level bundled, and less data equals less data. The most secure data is the data you never collected. Yeah, and also 7, these 2 terms, you need to know the legal difference. And 8, pets are powerful, but actually maturing, adopt with realistic expectation, and also watch for anti-patterns, schedule the data, eternal backup, and also the last but not least, deep architectural investment build actually very important trust and also reshape in the chip. Yeah. So let me know if you have any question about sharing of privacy data. Yeah. This is our sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol and Victoria. So this is for the audience. If you have any questions, you may post now. So until they come up with some questions, Victoria and Carol, I have something to clarify with you. So on the data sharing aspects that you were talking, I agree with you because when you take it from the company's perspective plus the individuals, I mean, we have to be extra careful in what information we are sharing with. It could be something to do with an app, or maybe sometimes we get messages saying share your information, and then we will come. So we have to be extra careful in what we are sharing with everyone. Is this prevalent in other parts of the world too, or is it only something that we are experiencing in? Well, we experience it in Sri Lanka. So I'm just trying to clarify how people are sharing information and what kind of privacy aspects that we are looking at when we share information. This is from a person's individual's point of view.
In fact, from individual perspective, usually when we first looking at when collecting information, that's what I mentioned about on the privacy notice. So that collection will also tell you whether they will share any information to third party. So that third party can be some of those, like some company, they collect the information, but the analytic they share to another company on a SaaS perspective to do the analysis of the data. So they need to be disclosed to you and share to you. And of course, some of this type of sharing is can be not mandated. That really depends on how they come into that particular contractual relationship. That's, for example, as what I mentioned about the member information. So if you do not allow me to do the analytic by this third party, I might not able to provide a better services to you on telling you like what's best fit for your member, what's best suggestion that I can do for you. So this is some things that really depends on the enterprise perspective, the necessity to have this type of third parties sharing. So, and in that case, if you are having that type of option to choose, of course, you definitely want to opt that out if that service is not really that something you fancy for. So, for example, I'm not sure whether people's in Sri Lanka will using Google services or not. Recently, Google has changed its privacy policy. So it has the policy allowed you to doing some track of your data to improve, because it does have Gemini AI right now. So it asks for your permission whether you want to have this better service or not. You can opt it out, but of course you will need to be smart enough to know how to opt it out as an individual perspective. But of course, this can be something like a red line in some country, referring this is not a preferred way, or it has to be like explicitly consent collected instead of by default. Now we collect your information for Gemini AI to improve your results instead of asking people to do an explicit consent. But I guess from third-party perspective, if you ask my recommendation as an individual, if I know that I have the option to turn it off, to opt out, I would definitely opt out, because sometimes third parties we not necessary to able to guarantee the third-party handling on the security perspective. But on most third-party handling, if they even though refer to tell you what third party are being transfer your data, they should also give you to look at the privacy notice of that third party as well in the privacy notice, so that you
Okay.
can have a look on that third party privacy notice, how they will handling your data's perspective. So that can be something that as a tip for individual perspective.
Okay, thank you so much, Carol. Yes, I think you and Carol, you and Victoria shared quite a lot of information around the practical aspects, technical aspects, and how a company has to look into the future. And it was very insightful. And thank you very much for your time and sharing your experiences.
Yeah, thank you once again for all the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we are moving into our fourth segment, session 4 on future-proof you, thriving no matter what changes, where we explore how individuals and companies can stay resilient and adaptable in an ever-evolving landscape. Ms. Bandana Sharma is a distinguished banking technology and information security specialist, currently serving as division head of the card and digital banking division at Nepal Bank Limited. With nearly 2 decades of experience, she has been instrumental in driving digital transformation, enterprise risk management, and cybersecurity modernization within Nepal's financial sector. Her expertise spans core banking migrations, enterprise MIS implementation, AML, CFT strengthening, and the development of robust information security frameworks and the incident response capabilities. She is recognized for effectively aligning technological advancements with regulatory requirements. Bandana has received several prestigious awards, including the National ICT Award 2025 Female Category, Woman Icon Award 2024, and Best IT Performer Award 2023. Academically, she holds an MBA, 2 master's degrees in IT-related fields, and a BCA, along with multiple professional certifications in cybersecurity and digital payments. Beyond her professional role, she is a strong advocate for women in ICT, actively contributing to policy dialogues, training initiatives, and international forums, representing Nepal in regional platforms. Without further ado, I invite Bandana to take the floor and share her insights. Bandana, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ruwandi, and namaste, all of you from Nepal, the country of Himalayas. So I would like to share my presentation. Let me check. I'm not.
Shall I help you out with the presentation, Bandana?
Yeah. You can do that because I'm not able to share with my desktop actually.
Sure, just give me a minute.
Okay, fine. Thanks, Ruwandi.
No problem. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yeah. I can see, but can I move it forward or backward?
I think I may have to do it for you.
Yeah.
know.
No, I can do it by myself.
Oh, you can,
also.
right, perfect.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ruwandi, for your help. And so I would like to start up with the quote saying, future-proof you, thriving no matter what changes. So the topic given to me was navigating uncertainty in rapidly changing world. So how we are going to navigate the uncertainty in such a digital disruption world, make our organization a future-proof organization and thriving whatever the situation is, we should move on. So I've just taken the example of Himalayas. I would like to explain and relate it to our country's Himalayas later on. This code, this statement. I think it's not changing actually what's happening. Okay.
That's all right. You let me know. I will change if you come
Okay,
across
fine,
any
fine.
technical issue.
So fine, that's fine, Rani. So global digital transformations of BFSI. So I have, because I'm in a banking and financial world, so I would like to relate it with our BFSI sector, and maybe it applies to all the sectors and many different roles. So the changing landscape of digital transformation, what is happening now in different sectors is like the introduction of AI and ML in risk scoring, fraud detection, and robo-advisory. The cloud-native banking platforms has been introduced with the SaaS-based core banking platforms. Open banking and APIs have been introduced with the real-time data sharing and personalization. Blockchain in trade finance and KYC and assets tokenizations are being implemented. ResTech, regulatory technology for real-time compliance and GRC, has been implemented recently. And with the embedded finance and banking is no more a bank, it's banking as a service. So this model has been adopted since a long time. Next. So global trend of digital banking, what we can see as per the Global Bank, World Bank Global Findex data is we can see the increasing trend of adoption of digital banking globally by the population since 2014 to 2025. In this 11 years, we are seeing the rapid growth trend of digital banking adoption globally. So when we see the future projections of digital payments, what's happening and what different reports are claiming is that the global digital payments projected to grow from around $6 trillion to around $9 trillion by 2025. And the e-commerce market size is also projected to reach 1.24 billion by 2028. So this is what the global future projections of digital payments is. When we see the emerging digital landscape, the evolving digital ecosystem, it has been shaped by increasing the connectivity, mobile-first users, fintech innovations, and new type of digital services. So these kind of different digital fintech innovations, the mobile-first users, the introduction of different type of fintech platforms are being evolving. And with this evolving rate, approximately 66% of the world population had access to or used to mobile banking services in 2025, as per the World Bank, GSMA, and National Statistics Report. And in Nepal, also, it's not like far beyond. It's also moving with the technology train, and 82% of mobile banking penetration in Nepal has been there. The introduction of e-wallet and QI uses is up to 100% yield of year. 73% of smartphone ownership is there in Nepal also. And the rise of rural fintech, electronic KYC, and digital payment corridors are being introduced with the introduction of cross-border payment system, So there's the push strategy of government also towards digital government services. So what we see with all this context is the people, even the organizations, and even the government has an increased reliance and increased dependencies on digital services and digital platform. So next. So think like just now we're talking about how digital disruptions is moving on. What are the trends, patterns of digital banking adoption, digital technology adoption, and digital push services by the government, by the organization, even by the users as being a mobile first users, right? So think of what if digital future be like. Imagine tomorrow morning you wake up in the morning and you try to withdraw your money from your mobile bank. Your bank system is down, traffic lights are not working. When you go to your office, traffic lights are down, flights are grounded, everything is disrupted. Everything is like disbalanced and stopped. Not because of the any war or disaster that has happened, but because of the security breach. So think of like what would be the digital future be like if everything is stagnant and stopped for a while. So next. So we can see that the global cyber attack growth trend since 2020 to 25, the average weekly cyber attacks per organization worldwide, it's a checkpoint research trend data, it's a volume-based data. We can see in 2020, the volume is around like 800 or 8 to 900, and its weekly pattern of this kind of cyber attacks has been increasing up to 2025. We can see around 2,000 attacks per week. It's a weekly attack in a volume wise. So we can see the pattern of how the cyber attack globally is taking the way and the growth trend is increasing in an increasing state. So next. So recently, we have, observed in Nepal while I was working as a CISO of the bank, we have identified many data breaches in Nepal as well. I'm just taking my country's example because there are lots of examples, maybe worldwide, but it's in an increasing state. We see the global trend report. In Nepal also, the PIDs, the data, which are very personal data, has been leaked and breached. There was a breach of biometric photos, signature, citizenship, the images, the personal images, national ID information, driving license copies, personal contact number. And these are very crucial information of a person, when we can see the cruciality, the criticality of when it is disrupted, when it's breached, what would be the impact towards everything, towards the customer trust, towards the organization, and towards the government as well. So these are the things we need to think of once again. So next. So in all these evolving, stages of digital transformation journey and the cyber attacks, the cyber attack trends, which are being, reported recently in news and reports. So what factor has highlighted the most important factor is the human factor, because around 88% of population has a basic literacy, but digital literacy still remains 50 to 55%. So we can see that the security and risk factors are still not the priority of the users, contrary to the cashback offers. They are alluring. They are just, they just want that cashback offer from different kind of platforms, but they are not that much, literate to know the risks and security factors. So these things applies to the human factor. Where I'm telling you human factor is because most of the organizations worldwide, whatever the risks, whatever the cyber attacks has happened, I think 70 to 80% attacks are being exploited from the human perspective, that has initiated from the human factor. So human factor is very important, and I would like to relate this human factor later on towards the security and leadership perspective also. So next. So think of what survives the longest. The strongest, I'm just talking not from only the personal perspective, but from the organizational and government perspective and from the sustainability perspective. Which thing survives the longest? Are those companies which are strongest survives longest? Are those companies which are very smartest survives longest? Or are those companies which are very richest survives longest? These are the companies or these are the organizations which survive longest? No. The one that survives longest and sustainable is the one that adapts fastest. And that is the main important crucial point of this presentation today. So next. So why this conversation matters today? Why are we talking about like navigating changes, future proof you and all? So we in the era of constant, rapid and unpredictable changes, what I've highlighted since the beginning was the rapid evolution of digital banking landscape, digital adoption of people, the cyber attack trends that have been increasing state, so these all are the constant rapid changes, and the changes are the only thing that is going to be sustainable in future. It's not about being agile or being resilient towards what is happening, but it's more important to know like what context is being changed and how these are rapidly going and moving forward in an unpredictable way, in an unpredictable manner. And are we prepared to thrive these? What has been changes, or what is going to happen in future? Are we prepared? Are we prepared for the impact what it brings to the organizations and to the government and to the society? So I think for these kind of things, these conversations matters today. So next. So I have highlighted a case study of Nokia and Microsoft because both of these companies had struggled a lot to adapt quickly to the smartphone revolution in around 80s to 90s. So why Nokia failed adaptation? Because Microsoft had also, acquired Nokia, and it was a very bad decision of that time. And we also study in our MBA and all the sessions about like how the leadership was, how the leadership misalignment has occurred when Microsoft has, acquired Nokia. So we can see that why Nokia failed adoption. It failed adaptation because it was dominant in 2017, but virtually it extinct afterwards because the governance structure was very slow. There was a misjudged software platform, and there was a rigid innovation pipelines because introduction of cloud and AI was already there, and Nokia couldn't adopt to that operational pivoting. So defeated by operational inability to pivot, the changes were the major factor for Nokia to extend from the market. And why Microsoft was successful in that struggling phase, in that adaptation phase of smartphone, it was thriving through total cultural restructuring. Restructured governance has been introduced. They pivoted toward ecosystem agnostic plans, agile leadership focus. There was a I think it's the CEO, Stella. No, I just forgot his name. The Stella Nadella was there, who was the person to took that pivoting role and change the whole ecosystem. And it was his agile leadership which has introduced Microsoft towards a valuable company and world's absolute giant company now. So next. So we can see like when we introduce some kind of digital product or services, when we go through some digital transformation journey in an organizations in this evolving changing landscape, we shouldn't misalign these three things, I guess, because whenever we introduce something as being it's not about technology we are adopting, it's about the leadership, it's about the governance, and it's about the risk management. So whenever we introduce something to our governance, like the board people, the management, we always introduce it and aligning it with the business impact, because leadership only understand business and profitability. So when we align all these things, the introduction of digital services to the organization, we introduce it as per the impact perspective, like what impact it's going to bring to the business when we lose, something, when we misalign something. So I think these three alignments should work together. The first one is, if we miss the governance part while we introduce some technology, what it's going to do, like it's going to lose the customer trust or reputational damage. How it's going to lose the customer trust and reputational damage if we miss that governance part. And if we miss the security risks management part, how it's going to introduce or increase the frequency and impact of cyber incidents. So we have to prove that. And in between that, as per the direction, like if, because leadership is very important with the governance and risk management perspective, until and unless we take a right decision at the right time, we will be lagging behind of the technology, like Nokia, the technological pace. So we need to be aligned with the technological transformation pace, that journey. We need to be aligned with that journey, and we need to take that decision on time. So timely decision is very important. So if we don't take decision on time, how it's going to slow the innovation and delay the market competitiveness. So these three factors has to be aligned accordingly to adapt with the changes perspective of digital transformations. Next. So to navigate the uncertainty successfully, the three forces must move together. What I have just recently cited, the three factors, I would like to explain it a bit further with that. So next. So governance as a strategic catalyst, when we are talking about digital transformation, disruptive transformations, adaptations of those digital technologies, new technologies, the most important thing what we had to think upon is the governance perspective. So how the governance is going to align with the digital initiatives with strategic goals, because government set a structure, it sets a direction, like where the organization should move forward in a strategic, and it's a shared strategic goals of an organizations. So there should be an alignment of a good governance perspective with the digital initiatives. The second one is being accountable, like setting the accountability of who is accountable for what role, what kind of role, what is the role of risk on risk your CRO, what is the role of the digital transformation head, what is the role of project manager. So when we make people's accountable in that digital transformation journey, everything is very clear and we can align with our shared objectives. And the next thing is ethics, because while using technology, we have been talking about the AI and data privacy and all. So everything just sticks towards the ethics, like how we are using, how ethically the technology is being used. So I think governance should look upon the ethics perspective also. And the next is agility, because governments cannot be rigid or stagnant. It should revise its policy and frameworks as per the changing needs and as per the changing digital transformation. With the introduction of AI, it should be adaptable and agile enough to, reinvent its existing frameworks and policies accordingly. And another thing, the most important thing is transparency, because until and unless we take all those stakeholders in a loop and communicate transparently about our digital transformation journey, the governance part is not in the right direction. So I think transparency is more important, another important factor for governance. Next. So in these three factors, alignment, another important factor is security as a resilience catalyst. How security could be a resilience catalyst is, security should work, because security has a three baselines parameters. The first one is confidentiality. How you are going to enable that trust, because trust is very important in any kind of digital journey or any kind of work in an organization. Whatever we bring into the table, the trust factor is very important. So how security is going to act as an enabler of trust, how security is going to maintain that integrity, maintain that confidence among the people, among the stakeholders is important, and how we are going to make this business available to the customers or maybe certain stakeholders. And so because continuity of business is very important, so security work as a resilience catalyst should work as a resilient catalyst in this journey. And last one, but not the least, adaptation and being resilient is very important. So how you are adapting that technology and making it resilient for future. What are the parameters you are adapting? How you're using those CIA trade is very important to work to introduce security as a resilience catalyst. So next. So the another factor which is more important in this navigating a disruptive journey is leadership as a change catalyst. So leadership will work as a change catalyst, because until and unless we don't trust a leadership, we can't move forward. Because when you introduce, I have as my long-term experience in organizations, I used to introduce new technology to the management and to the board, and how I convince the board to adapt and to move with that technological transformation was up to me, up to my leadership, and how the management is trusting my leadership on that journey. So leadership is what? Because governance has set the baseline, set the structure, set the framework, set the policies, and leadership is going to navigate in that strategic direction. Leadership is going to show that direction, like how we are going to move forward. And for that, proper vision is very important, connecting today's decisions with the future goals, how we are connecting our right now this decision towards the future oriented goal. Vision should be very important to have leadership as a change catalyst. And another is agility, like willingness to change the approaches. It's not about like being stagnant with the whatever we have introduced and implemented. It's about continuously keeping it agile and changing the approaches. Because I always used to say, whenever we talk about leadership, I always used to say decision, because leadership is aligned with the decision. So decision is never a correct or a wrong decision, but decision is important in terms of a time. What at what time and what context you have taken that decision is very important. So we need to, because even if I've taken certain decision for some time, if I foresee the changing the approaches as being going there, and I need to adapt the changes, I have to have that willingness to adapt the changes in a very fast way. And that is what a good leader do that. So another is confidence moving forward despite of uncertainty, because we are living in such a disruptive, digital transformation journey. We can't say what is happening today and what will happen tomorrow, because the introduction of quantum computing has changed the perspective of how people see the technology. So whatever can happen, and until and unless in this uncertain period also we are not confident, we can't do an informed decisions, we lack that leadership. So I think confidence is more important to move forward despite of whatever uncertainty the future brings. And the main important another factor is collective action also, because to have a informed decision, you need to have that collective action, you need to have that shared understanding and coordination among the people. And to be a good leader, you also need to be transparent towards the stakeholders. What you are bringing into the table is very important. So next. So like this, the three factors, the governance part, the security part, and the leadership part, it goes hand in hand. It goes in a circular motion, like governance from slow checkpoints to proactive risk mapping. It accelerates. It acts as an accelerator of a secure innovation. And security, it embeds deep resilience. It ensures business continuity, and the leadership builds a forward-looking mindset and embraces ambiguity, which promotes rapid upscaling. So these three factors, they align with each other, and they move in a circular motion, helping and coordinating each other in in an organizational context. So these three factors are very important for a strategic growth engine. Next. So with these three factors, I have, highlighted the six important factors from the future perspective. So I have, introduced future as a framework, as a resilience model. How we can use this model is whenever people ask me like how we are going to be a future-proof leadership, how you are applying a future-proof leadership. So I just answer that my future-proof leadership navigating uncertainty is a future framework model. And how this model works is with the introduction of flexible governance. Governance shouldn't be a rigid checkpoint, but it should be flexible, agile, and adaptive. Understanding risks, because whatever we introduce, whatever product or services or whatever thing in an organization, we should first understand the risks, like what is going to happen, what are the KRIs, what are the KPIs, how we need to monitor that, how it's going to work, what are the biasness perspective, how are you going to analyze that. So all these understandings would bring a better perspective of making a good decisions. And another important thing is technical integration, because integration part is also important, understanding the governance and risks perspective, how we are going to integrate the technology, how we are going to, introduce an APIs or many kind of open banking APIs towards that particular services. And the fourth one is upskilling yourself always. Upskilling means not upskilling yourself only, but upskilling your organizations, the workforce, how we are going to reskill your workforce, how you're going to introduce new kind of developmental initiatives, how you're going to develop the capacity of the people around you, and how we are going to develop your leadership yourself. So upskilling is always important. I think it's a cultural mindset, how your organization is behaving or has a culture of capability enhancement is very important. And another is resilience culture, like the culture of being resilient, like whatever incident or whatever things are going to happen, we are going to survive, we are going to recover our organization in that way. What is our RPO, what is our RTO, how we are going to adapt those kind of incident response plans are very important. And this resilience cultural mindset should be from top to bottom. It should be applied from top to bottom. So everyone should know if it doesn't work or if it doesn't happen, what is the impact. So understanding impact is very important for resilience culture. And the last one is empowered leaders. So leaders should always be empowered as per the resources, as per the knowledge, as per the experience. So if you have that kind of vision, that kind of experience, that kind of informed data with you, so you will be obviously empowered. So these are the six factors which your organization could also adapt as a future framework model. So one important thing and the crucial message, because I am from the country of Himalayas, I belong to the Himalayan country of Nepal. Everest, Mount Everest, I think you all have heard about Mount Everest, which is the highest peak of the world. So I would like to give the example of a Himalayas. Many people think Himalayas represent stability, it's stagnant, it's just being there, think that they say that Himalayas are stable. But I think Himalayas has, endured snowstorms. They have endured avalanches. They have endured earthquakes. They have endured many type of climate changes. Every day they endure glacier movements, and yet they are resilient. Not because they resist to the change, but because they absorb that change. And the Himalayas survive because they continuously adapt, not because they are stable, but they are continuously adapting these kind of snowstorms, avalanches, earthquakes, climate change. So the same thing happened to our organizations and in our personal life also. We face lots of snowstorms, we face lots of avalanches, lots of earthquake kind of incidents, the climate changes the government changes, regulatory changes, compliance changes. But what is main important is we should be able to absorb that changes and remain our organization ourselves resilient to that changes and make ourselves lesson learning the past lessons, make ourselves resilient toward that kind of various kind of changes that brings. So last but not the least, future is uncertain. We cannot control every disruption, but we can strengthen our ability to respond. Organizations that align governance, security, and leadership will not merely survive, survive the change, but they will transform uncertainty into opportunity. Just as Himalayas endured adapting to constant forces of nature, our greatest strength lies in resisting change and not resisting to change, but embracing it with resilience, purpose, and confidence. So that is the last message I want to give all of you. Be confident, be resilient, and stay tuned with the changing journey. That's all. Thank you so much. And if there's any queries, I would like to respond from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Bandana, for that very insightful session. Well, we have a moderator who will be joining in a little later. She knows a lot about Everest because she does a lot of hiking there. Right. So with that, I have one question to post. Like we were talking about leadership is a change catalyst. If you can please give your perspective on what KPIs, what are the leading indicators or KPIs that we should monitor to know if our leadership style is effectively accelerating our digital transformation?
Thank you, Ruanji, for the questions. I think not only KPIs, because for to be an adaptive leader, there are many factors which we need to take account of. Like when we talk about KPIs, like how as being a leader, you need to check and balance your own knowledge and experience, like how you have taken forward with that journey in past, and what was the lesson learned you have taken from that particular implementation of certain project or maybe certain kind of role. So what I think is being agile is one KPI. Being agile with the changing technology, changing pace is important, and having a learning attitude is another important factor, another important KPI. I must say that because when until unless you will not be able to learn and adapt to new things and new situations, you will not be able to be a good leader. And another thing is transparency is very important to be a good leader. Transparency is very important. Whatever knowledge you have, until and unless you will not transparently communicate among the stakeholders, you'll not able to lead and gain the trust of the people around you. So another important thing is good communication skills is very important to be a leader, because a leader is not technologically, he or she shouldn't be a technological sound, but he should be able to manage and communicate those things. He should. And the most important KPI I must say is having emotional intelligence is very important to be a good leader, and adaptive to changes, because you are not dealing with only machines in an organization. You are dealing with lots of people who have emotions, and you should be emotionally intelligent enough to lead those kind of emotions and to gain the trust of the people around you. I think those are the KPIs. And understanding risks is very important, and taking the informed decisions is very important. I always used to say decisions are not right or wrong, not perfect or imperfect, but decisions should be taken on time, and timely decisions, always informed decisions, informed data help us to make those kind of timely decisions. So I think these are all the parameters.
Okay. Thank you, Bandana. Thanks for joining, and thanks
Thank
for
you so
accepting
much.
our invitation. And
Thanks so much.
with that,
It's my pleasure.
thank you so much. So with that, we are coming to a conclusion of our final keynote presentation. And then it's our time to move into our panel discussion now. We have some trailblazing ladies who have done quite a lot of work in this tech industry. So let me begin with the first panelist today. Dr. Jenny Tsang is a seasoned global risk leader and transformational executive and extensive experience in internal audit, technology risk, governance, and enterprise resilience. Currently, global head of group internal audit at a global real estate fund management company, she drives audit innovation, combined assurance, and data-enabled risk practices across complex international portfolios. A former PwC Singapore partner and CIO, she has led large-scale transformation, operational turnaround, and talent development initiatives. Jenny also serves on university boards, chairs the Institute of Risk Management Singapore, and contributes to national AI advisory efforts. Recognized for strategic execution and stakeholder influence, she combines commercial consulting and academic expertise to strengthen the organizational performance and risk culture. Our second panelist is Ms. Victoria Tsang. Ms. Victoria Tsang is the ISACA SheLeadsTech Regional Advocate Asia, the SheLeadsTech Committee member of ISACA China Hong Kong, the Young Professional Committee member of the Institute of Internal Auditors Hong Kong, and the Women in Technology Committee member of Ernst & Young. She is also appointed as the program manager of the Taiko Women's Inspire Network, where she supports initiatives that empower women in technology and leadership. She is specialized in the cybersecurity field for her professional expertise and industry contributions. She holds a master's degree in information technology management from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. She has been invited as a guest speaker at the University of Hong Kong for 2 consecutive years during the Information Security and Personal Data Protection Week, where she represented on topics related to security, health, and privacy risks. In addition, she served as a guest lecturer for the course FinTech Cybersecurity and Risk Management, part of Master of Finance and Financial Technology program at HKU Business School, sharing insights on the importance of cybersecurity in the FinTech sector. Our third panelist is Ms. Sonali Wickramaratne. Ms. Sonali Wickramaratne is a globally experienced audit and risk leader who has held senior roles across the US, UK, and Asia, including as Global Head of Internal Audit for a former US public company. With a career spanning 2 decades across audit, tech governance, and regulatory strategy, Sonali is known for her clarity, ability to lead transformations in high-risk environments, and for providing crisp and valuable insights to leadership boards. As a woman navigating leadership across complex cultures, organizations, and systems, she brings not just expertise in risk, controls, and governance, but a deeply human perspective on resilience, integrity, and carving one's career path on one's own terms. Sonali is currently a freelance risk, audit, and regulatory strategy consultant and a member of the Non-Executive Board of Directors, UK. Our fourth panelist is Ms. Jayalaxmi Bhandari. With 20+ years shaping digital transformation in financial services and insurance, Jayalaxmi Bhandari brings rare depth across technology delivery, GRC, cybersecurity governance, and privacy. As Group Delivery Manager based in Muscat, Oman, she leads complex strategic programs spanning regulatory compliance, ERP transformation, and operational modernization across the GCC region. A globally certified professional and trusted voice in governance, risk, and assurance, she is a long-standing member and an office bearer of ISACA, known for bridging business priorities with technology innovation and championing secure, future-ready organizations. Our moderator for today is Ms. Thishanie Dharmadasa. Thishanie currently heads the Internal Audit and Risk Management function at Royal Ceramics Lanka PLC, where she leads governance, risk, and assurance initiatives across the organization. She began her professional journey at KPMG Ford Roads and has since built an extensive career across several prestigious organizations, including Ernst & Young, Sri Lankan Airlines, Rosamani Group, Dubai, Information and Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka, and Palavatta in Dairy Industries. With over 18 years of professional experience spanning both public and private sectors and having held leadership positions over 9 years, Thishanie has gained broad exposure across service and manufacturing industries in both local and international environments. Her expertise covers external audit, internal auditing, financial processes, information systems audits, compliance reviews, risk management, and sustainability. So with that, we warmly welcome all our panelists along with our moderator, Thishanie. With that, I invite you to take the stage and lead us into this discussion. Over to you, Thishanie.
Thank you, Ruandi, for that lovely introduction. I hope our panelists have joined already. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ISACA Sri Lanka Chapter, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's panel discussion on leading through uncertainty, governance, cyber risk, and financial resilience in a changing world. The key words being here, uncertainty and resilience. So today we live in a time where uncertainty is no longer an occasional disruption. It has rather become a constant in our lives. Organizations today must navigate evolving cyber threats, rapid technological advancements, regulatory complexities, economic volatility, and increasing stakeholder expectations, all while remaining resilient and sustainable. In this environment, governance is no longer just about oversight, it is about enabling informed decision making, especially at the board level, at the governance-driven level. So cyber risk has no longer become an IT's concern, IT department's concern. It is actually a strategic business risk. And financial resilience is also no longer just measured simply by the profitability of an organization, but by an organization's ability to adapt, withstand shocks, and emerge stronger and more stable. On that context, we are privileged to have with us 4 distinguished leaders representing Oman, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Sri Lanka. Each individual brings a unique perspective shaped by diverse industries, regulatory environments, and leadership experiences spanning over several decades. Together, they will share their valuable insights on how organizations and leaders can navigate uncertainty while building trust, resilience, and long-term value. I encourage all of the participants here to listen actively and challenge conventional thinking and take away any practical lessons that can be applied within your own organization. With that note, I would like to direct my first question to Jenny. Jenny, how can an internal audit or risk management or a finance function collaborate more effectively to strengthen organizational resilience?
Okay.
Jenny?
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I hope
I
you
was
heard.
just-
Yes.
Yeah, I was just trying to solve my backdrop issue.
Right.
I realized
Okay.
that I'm not the same one. Yeah. Okay. So my question is on the internal audit, risk management, and finance function, right? To collaborate more. Yeah. So I think for what we are doing at this juncture, while I believe all departments, be it IA, risk, finance, we have stepped forward beyond the past where we are working very siloed through, having conversations in this current stage, right? In the past, we do our own stuff, but now we are talking to one another. But I guess while we are talking to one another, it helps to bring in different perspective in our respective work. It hasn't gone on to the stage where, all 3 lines of defense, we come together. Yeah, and totally work as a combined assurance kind of position. So I mean that's the reality, right? Because it all goes back to how big is the organization, how is it being structured, and the human behavior, who is leading those functions. I mean these are natural. So I think how can we first of all step forward and ensure that organizational resilience can be put in place. I would suggest, first of all, let's take a step back because based on experience, I do realize that something that is very basic that we take for granted, but across the various functions, different lines, we may understand that particular item very differently, and that is risk definition. Yeah. So, the risk definition that auditors understood versus how the risk interpreted versus how the line one people interpret it, it's different. I don't know whether you have encountered that before, but I've encountered it many times. Yeah. So let's say we thought that, how for a very simple risk that we say, let's say it's when we use the term, which risk can I say I come across pretty often is let's say suddenly it just gone off my head. Okay, let's say cybersecurity risk, for instance, very simply put. But cybersecurity risk is very high level. Yeah. So what goes into that cybersecurity risk is it's very different to different people. So like for instance, auditors, when I interpret cybersecurity risk, I will interpret it more from the perspective that it's external function coming the control failure is due to external risk exposure, and it's due to, let's say, some of the network security matters. Yeah, but to the risk department, they may just classify anything that deals with technology risk and just cluster into cybersecurity risk, for instance. Yeah. So then to the finance function, to them is alien. I don't even know, what cybersecurity risk am I talking about? Yeah. So how to contribute to that? So I think these are some of the alignment that we need to ensure within our own ecosystem, within the 3 lines of defense, to before we even get to understanding, how can we be resilient about it? Now, once we can settle that, I think then the next step is, can we all 3 lines come together and, work on a program that is integrated? I think now we have my own audit plan. The risk team, the cybersecurity team, they have their own, program, right? And then finance, they just perform everything that's related to numbers. Yeah. They measure just profitability, EBITDA, that kind of thing, margin, etc. But when you look at all this data being presented, it is very siloed. What does it say, right? So there is no interconnectivity in the first place. Because when we talk about resilience, we really need to understand how our own organization ecosystem is integrated. There is some complexity there. So this is something that I hope it can be achieved. I don't know whether it will be, because while discussing it is very easy, we can always say all these things, but in real life, it is very difficult and challenging to get it implemented. But that is an ideal state I want to get into. If our programs can be integrated, or perhaps based on past exceptions or findings that we have discovered, we should be sitting down together, and ask, in what sense can we develop a plan that, can do an end-to-end, really truly end-to-end, and then we present a report that is end-to-end and is integrated with comments from audit, with comments from risk, with comments from the actual management team. So I mean, in this way, I would say that perhaps this is the next step that we can get into to help ensuring what organizational resilience can be. The last point I just want to touch about it is also, well, we say we're willing to work towards that, but what is the board's expectation? Yeah. So if the board's expectation is still siloed and just focusing on finance matters, then whatever things that we're trying to do is even more challenging, because you don't get sponsorship from the top. Back to you.
Right. Thank you very much for that opening note, Jenny. I think picking up from what you have mentioned, especially in terms of working in silos and not having integration enough within an organization when it comes to risk management. And as you very rightfully said, the risk management definition itself varies across various functions and departments. And that itself is a problem when we try to navigate through risk that an organization faces. So on the same line of questions, I think the next one would be more suitable for Sonali. Sonali, with your experience in Sri Lanka and overseas as well, I would like to ask from you, what are the best governance practices that have proven over a period of time in a most effective manner for an organization to maintain its continuity, especially during the times of disruptions?
Thank you, and welcome to all. Thank you for having me here. So looking at what helps an organization remain agile and have a good sense of continuity, I've thought about 7 different areas, and one is having crisis management teams and plans in place ahead of time. What you do not want to do is to be scrambling around, putting a team together at the wake of crisis. And I've seen that happen. A lot of people realize they're in crisis, or wow, we need some people to help. So being prepared is very important. And when you say a crisis management team, it's not simply about putting a few people together. It's about making sure that there is expertise that you need to drive these. You need division of responsibility. You need empowerment. A crisis management team is useless if you wait for the CEO to say, go on, because a CEO could be in a flight, right? So they have to be empowered, and the team and the plan has to be reviewed periodically and approved so that it is ready to go. The second point I would say is predefined and approved decision-making structures. The board only meets several times a year, and in an emergency, it's hard to put these boards together because a lot of people live in different parts of the world in current board compositions. The C-suite is scattered in multiple different things. So you do not want to wait for these individuals to tell you how to go about things in the wake of crisis. So you need to have good predefined approval and decision-making structures, which includes escalation matrices, emergency funds, resourcing. Let's say that you need a forensic auditor. You shouldn't be waiting for the CFO to approve it in the wake of crisis. There should be pre-approved vendors in your list in the wake of crisis that you can reach out to. Oftentimes what I've seen is, okay, crisis takes place. Now they're looking for a forensic auditor. They're asking everyone in the industry, can you bid? Because there has not been any pre-arranged relationship where the auditor actually, whether it's a forensic auditor or any other expert, is familiar with the organization. So now you stay in the crisis longer and it impacts continuity. In similar lines, one is pre-approved and prepaid expert advisors. There are times where you need another angle, right? It could be tax. Now, tax is a very complicated area. And if you're in a very difficult situation, you may need a tax expert in another region. And you have to have this prepaid approved expert board that you can call on when you need, and that sustains your continuity. Another point is reviewing risk appetite. Now, when you manage your continuity, you do not want to interrupt your other objectives by managing this one thing. Say that you have a ransom to pay. Now, you can't go ahead and pay a ransom if it's in conflict with another region you're operating in, or if there is some other federal penalty, because now you're not balancing your risks. So here's the risk of the crisis that you're managing, and here's the risk for other things. Now you have to balance it. So you really have to ensure that you don't neglect your risk appetite, because if not, you're going to fall from the pot to the fire, right? And those are instances where you have to engage C-suite and the board, because risk appetite is important to them. What helps continuity is a well-documented, this is another point, a well-documented internal control structure. It sounds very basic, but it helps you to understand which parts of your control framework has lapsed and which parts are working, so that you can continue with business as it is for those areas that are working and focus on what is not working. Now, I have seen again, oftentimes people are scrambling to understand because they don't have documented frameworks and controls and possibly a quarterly view of it. So they do not know where things went wrong. At least if you have a documented control framework of as it is in the company, you know where things could continue. Coming to the last 2 points, one is proactive, frequent, and transparent communication. Please don't allow people to decide what this is or how it is or what. Some people just stop working at the wake of crisis because they don't know what to do. So that is not beneficial for the organization. Some people just spread rumors. So make sure that whether things are good or bad in the company, there's always good communication that is proactive and frequent. Not too long ago, during an environmental crisis in Sri Lanka, there was an organization who said absolutely no communication. People did not know whether to take a boat to go to work or not because there was no communication. And that's not ideal for continuity. You can't have people decide between are you going to live or are you going to work? Because this is an environmental disaster, right? And so communication is important. And finally, post-disruption review and adaptation. So I would say your post-mortem of going through all of the above points to see how well you did. Did you scramble? Did you float? Or did you thrive with continuity, meeting your objectives amidst disruption is very important. And at that, the board also should weigh, because does it mean we have to change policies? Does it mean we have to have more cash reserves? And those are things that's important. So those are the 7 points I would focus on.
Right.
Thank you,
Thank
Thishanie.
Thank you, Sonali, for that. I think you have actually given a whole lot of practical aspects and problems that we face, or we try to we do not anticipate at all, and then we face. Once the crisis hits us on the face, we try to work around that. I think you brought some very important points to the discussion. On the back of it, Jayalaxmi, I would like to ask from you with reference to the technological disruptions. Now, that is a very prominent situation right now within the global landscape where everything is digitalized, digital transformation journey is on, and we are working more towards digital platforms rather than on manual platforms. So on that aspect, for an organization to be governance enabled, what are the best practices or non-negotiable governance practices that an organization should adopt in terms of a technological disruption?
Sure. Thank you, Thishanie, for that welcome note and the question. So governance practices that are non-negotiable today in an uncertainty. Well, in today's environment where technology is evolving rapidly and geopolitical events can change business conditions overnight, governance can no longer be viewed as a compliance exercise. It has become a strategic capability. There are 3 governance practices that I believe have become non-negotiable. First, the board and leadership teams must have better visibility into risk. Traditional governance focused heavily on financial and operational risks. Today, cyber risk, technology risk, regulatory changes, and geopolitical developments need to be a part of the boardroom agenda. So organizations need a more integrated view of risk rather than managing risk in silos. Second of it, I would say cyber resilience must be treated as a business issue and not just an IT issue. Every organization is now getting digitalized. The question is no longer whether an incident will happen, but how prepared are we to respond and recover? So strong governance means regular cyber risk reviews, clear accountability, incident response planning, and testing resilience before a crisis occurs. Next, I would say organizations need governance frameworks that support agility and faster decision-making. In periods of uncertainty, waiting for the right, perfect information to be handed over can be more dangerous than acting with incomplete information. So effective governance provides clear decision rights, escalation mechanism, and accountability so leaders can respond quickly while maintaining a good oversight. Further, at the end of all this, to work without the right culture, none of this is going to work. The most resilient organizations are those that have where transparency, ethical conduct, and accountability are embedded throughout the organization and not just documented in policies. So if I had to give you an example of a good governance, we need to look beyond technology for a moment, or we could take an example of New Zealand response for COVID-19, which stands as a masterclass. They succeeded the first phase because the leadership understood that compliance cannot be forced by a decree alone. It requires trust. So when the crisis hit, the government just did not sit silent and just in mandating from closed doors. Instead, they focused more on the governance pillars like transparency, data-driven decisions, and culture alignment. On the other hand, if we had to understand what is governance failure, when governance fails, we can look back at the response of Hurricane Katrina in 2005, where it was a tragic masterclass in the breakdown of leadership and coordination, accountability. The disaster wasn't just because of the weather, it was severely worsened by the governance, where they failed across at all levels, the federal, the state, and the local. So the critical flaws that paralyzed the responses were lack of unified communication network, unclear lines of command to lead, and the illusion of being prepared. So if I had to summarize, the governance priorities today are integrated risk oversights, build resilience, agile decision-making, and a culture of accountability. Organizations that get these fundamentals right are much positioned to navigate uncertainty and remain financially resilient in a rapidly changing world. To put it in other words, effective governance in uncertainty is not about predicting the storm. It's about building resilience to sail through it. I hope I have been able to relate to our previous session and what Sonali and Jane said. Thank you. Over to you, Tishani.
Thank you, Jayalaxmi. Yes, I think as you have very correctly highlighted, not planning for managing any of the risk is itself is a phase of failure. So on that same note, now I think you have given us quite a few examples in terms of how the world or certain parts of the world has failed in terms of managing emerging risks. I would like to direct the cybersecurity aspect of things to Victoria. Victoria, this question is to you. So on the back of what Jayalaxmi explained, how can an organization successfully elevate a cybersecurity risk, which is often viewed as a IT department related risk only, to a strategic business risk discussion?
Yeah. Okay, so maybe let me start with the simple observation. Actually, cybersecurity stop being just an IT issue the moment it can disrupt revenue or trigger regulatory action, which today is almost always. So to evaluate cybersecurity to the strategic level, organization, I think need to shift in three ways. Fundamental way. First, translate cyber risk into business language. Because board don't make decisions based on vulnerability. They usually make decisions based on financial impact, operational disruption, and reputational risk. So the key is quantify risk in terms of financial exposure, downtime, client impact, and also link cyber scenarios to business processes. For example, what happens if our payment system is unavailable for 24 hours? So this reframes cybersecurity from technical problems to a business resilience issue. And second, I think can be embed cyber into enterprise governance and strategy. So cyber risk should not sit in a silo. It must be embedded in strategic decisions such as cloud adoption, outsourcing, or market expansion, and regularly discussed at board and audit committee level. We are seeing a clear shift. That means the board are now expected to treat cyber as a core governance priority, not a component checkbox. And third, I think positioning the CISO as a business partner, not a technology or technical person, because the role of the CISO has evolved significantly from a defending system to enabling secure growth. And also organization that do this well treat cybersecurity as a competitive advantage and also trust and enabler, not just cost or control. Yeah. So I think and also shifting mindset from the protection to resilience, because data breach are no longer a matter of if, but actually when. That means so the conversation need to move from how do we prevent attack to how do we continue operating during and after an attack. Yeah. So that is where cybersecurity connects directly to financial resilience and also business continuity. The organization that get this right have one thing in common. Their leadership teams treats cyber resilience as inseparable from business strategy itself. So I think to some in summary, that means the cybersecurity becomes strategic when it is expresses in business outcome and governed at board level and tied directly to resilience and also value creation. Yeah, hope my answer can fulfill your question.
It is pretty clear, Victoria. Yes, as you said, the cybersecurity aspect or the information system security component of an organization should be made a business partner of an overall organization decision making, especially when it comes to strategic level business or board level discussions, so that it is addressed preemptively and action are taken accordingly. So on the same note, now that we have spoken a lot about the organization's preparedness and how we should address this, how the risk definition should be, and how an organization should work in integration, different functions, I would like to direct this question to Jenny. So Jenny, in your understanding and with your experience, what are the indicators or the KPIs that a board or an executive management of an organization should set and also monitor to ensure that an organization is resilient or it's ready for some sort of a disruption or unanticipated event?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So, again, I want to take it from the perspective that are our board members ready to talk about such leading indicators in the first place, or whatever indicators they're going to put in place, because we are so used to setting indicators that are lagging, because it's easier, because there is data to back it up, right? Yeah. So that's why it is difficult for the board, the senior executives, to switch their mindset in the first place. So I think in order for us to get there, we need to see how can we educate our senior stakeholders towards that as well, because it really requires a different mindset shift from what has gone wrong to asking questions that what kind of value can we bring from our existing practice should we encounter a crisis, for instance, right? Because earlier on, the other three speakers also spoke about crisis resiliency, crisis management, business continuity, but things have really changed because while everything said is is agreeable, it's just that a lot of organizations, they may not have come across real crises that challenged their plans. Yeah, whether it works or not. Because in the past, when the technology is down, I can still switch to manual work, right? But current situation, I think a lot of people have forgotten what manual things is all about when they depend on technology so much. Simply put, let's say you go to a restaurant nowadays, a lot of them just pass you an iPad to deal with it or ask you to scan the QR code to do all these things. I think the waiters have forgotten how to take orders and then put submit all these things, right? So some of these very basic things are not even there. So coming back to this particular question, I think first of all, we have to train the senior stakeholders about what kind of questions to ask to make sure that the management team can rethink about their their plans that will lead to certain measurements that will differ. And also the other thing is when we talk about resiliency, it's not just about recovery. Yeah, it's just one portion of it, right? So when we prepare ourselves for resiliency, we need to think about, from the perspective that what kind of risk scenarios or threat scenarios that we can anticipate. Yeah. So a lot of scenario planning has to come into play. Once we can think of that, then we can look at it more from the acceptance level, the absorb level, right? Are we able to accept such hit if such a threat or a risk has happened? And then we look at how can we adapt before we even think about recovery. I mean, these are setting the baseline of this particular question. Of course, simply put, if I'm looking at it for now, given the current situation, definitely other than financial, indicators that we are talking about, we should also look at how to measure strategic resilience. Yeah. So this goes back to my earlier setting, the fundamental matters. How can we look at succession planning? That's number one. In terms of the scenario planning, maturity as well. So all these things talks about how you prepare for the future, you anticipate to measure against what your strategy is all about at this juncture. Only then the next step that we look at will be the typical operational resiliency indicators. Now, this one ties in very closely to what Sonali has mentioned about the crisis management portion and the BCP portion, because we all know when we measure BCP, we talk about RTO, recovery time objective, right? But in the past, it's very clear cut. I can say within 4 hours, 8 hours, etc. But now, do we really know? Because everyone just want everything back in a second. Yeah. But then if all of our ecosystem is all on the cloud and different cloud service providers, how much time have we really spent on testing end to end to allow us to fulfill such an indication? So I think this is a very big question to fulfill because while we know organizations try their best to do simulation, but then still tabletop, right? Some maybe bring in a couple of vendors to play with it, but still not enough. And if your vendor is the giants like Microsoft, Google, AWS, they don't even bother to work with you. Yeah, they have other things. They just tell you, you have to trust me. Yeah, so it's like 99.99 kind of thing. Yeah, so you encounter such things. So your plans is actually incomplete. Your testing simulation is also incomplete. Yeah, so these are some of the examples that I would think we can consider when we think about certain indicators. Then we cannot forget about all the cyber related, the digital related indicators, like, how do you measure third party cyber risk exposure? Yeah, how do we know? When we do up our contract, right? There could be a clause there, or most of the organization may not even have a clause there to want the third party vendor to report to you the incident that they have faced, right? It may not be the incident relating to your organization data, but how are we measuring that? I think those are also important indicators. The last part I want to emphasize on would be the human side of things, because a lot of us, we keep talking about the processes, the technology, but where is the people portion? Yeah. So I think the people portion is pretty important, especially if you want to look at the anticipating what's next, right? So simply put, like for instance, our employee engagement scores. We are so used to, filling up the surveys and then submitting, and then the next sometime later, HR will tell you, oh, your department engagement score very good, 90%. What does that mean, right? So very few of the stakeholders will relate to such a score to a risk index, right? Yeah, people will just think that, oh, okay, employees are happy, so the attrition rate will be lower. They relate it back to the HR function. They seldom link it back to the risk function. So so happened that my research is on employee engagement. So in that sense that, yeah, it does show, the research does show that the higher the engagement is with our employees, the higher the risk-taking appetite of our employees. But then when we say risk-taking, it doesn't mean it's bad, okay? Yeah, so some risks are good to take, some risks are bad, yeah. But then you need to know that the appetite has widened, yeah. So with that, how do you anticipate what will come next with your organization strategy, with your group of employee profiles sitting there waiting for it to act on things, right? Culture will also play a part. Then, of course, with all these things in place, the wrap out, right? The wrap up of all this will be the governance indicators. Yeah. So without governance, none of us will know where to benchmark as well. Yeah. We can all be busy acting on all these initiatives, trying to fulfill all these criteria, but you need that governance to help us to benchmark where we are, to tell us, are we in the right direction? So things like, just now we spoke about internal audit. So then we should not measure number of findings alone because it will deter people, yeah, but rather we should consider how many findings are repeated, because it tells you a behavior pattern within the organization. Yeah, things like your risk appetite breaches. So, how many of our business units may have done something that has, breached the so-called risk appetite percentage tolerance level. So all this again goes back to earlier on I mentioned the human behavior, where people forgot that there is a component that's linked to risk. People usually treat human behavior outcome, just put it back to HR concerns. So in today's context, I would encourage people to look at all these behavioral analytics beyond, just HR. It does have an impact to risk implications. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. So as you correctly mentioned, I think benchmarking is important, and also to keep monitoring and measuring so that we know where we are heading, where we are right now and where we are heading. So that sort of gives us a bit of a roadmap to work on and proceed on. On the back of that question, there's another thing that came up to my mind. I actually think both Sonali and Jayalaxmi can answer this in whichever the order that you want. So if we as internal auditors and risk management professionals, we are supposed to be advisors to the management, to the board and the CEO level. So considering the current scenarios in the world, the volatility in the markets, uncertainties, etc., what would be your advice if you have been given the opportunity to advise your CEO or your board of directors or the chairman to focus only on one priority over the next 12 months in terms of strengthening the resilience of your organization? What would that be? The floor is open to both of you. Any one of you can take it.
Go ahead, Jayalaxmi. You were always. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the question, Thishanie. For the CEO to prioritize to strengthen the resilience. Well, if I had to advise the leadership team to focus on one priority over the next 12 months, it would be building organizational resilience through preparedness and adaptability. I think I could relate with many of our speakers today. They have been using these terms, and yes, I too believe. The reason is simple. We cannot predict the next disruption. It could be a cyber attack, a geopolitical event, a supply chain shock, regulatory change, or even an emerging new technology that reshapes the market. The specific risk is often unpredictable, but organizations' ability to respond is something leaders can control. For me, resilience is not just having contingency plans. It's about ensuring the organization can absorb shocks, make decisions quickly, and recover without losing momentum. So that requires strong leadership, clear governance, robust cyber defenses, reliable data, financial disciplines, and the culture to embrace change. I would encourage executive leadership teams to ask a simple question. If a major disruption happens today or tomorrow, how confident are we in our ability to continue serving customers, protecting our assets, and executing our strategy? The organizations that succeed over the next decades are not necessarily those that can predict every risk. They are the ones that can adapt the fastest when circumstances change. So if there is one priority, it is building resilience as a core organizational capability, not as a risk management initiative, but as a competitive advantage. To summarize, in an uncertain world, resilience is no longer about surviving disruption. It is about being prepared and being able to adapt. Thereby, you emerge stronger because of it. Over to you, Thishanie.
Jayalaxmi, thank you. Very well put. Sonali, would you like to add your thoughts onto that?
Jayalaxmi covered a good broad view, and I would only drill down into it. So within that framework of what Jayalaxmi mentioned, I would say within that scope, I would balance emerging horizon risks as well as existing risks so that they're not caught off guard. Most of the time, the board or the C-suite is caught off guard because their focus is backward on existing risks and actually trying to be answerable to their investors over their existing financials or tech positions and so forth. But within the framework of what Jayalaxmi is saying, there has to be a good 50-50 focus on emerging and horizon risks. And that's a large part of being prepared. So that's what I would add.
Okay. Thank you, Sonali, for that feedback. So moving on to Victoria, with your speciality in terms of cybersecurity, what are your biggest cybersecurity threats or concerns as of today? And how have they evolved over last 5 years, let's say?
Yeah, actually, I believe the biggest risk organization are underestimating is that the systematic impact of emerging technologies on cyber resilience. I think maybe less big into a few areas like quantum computing may seem distant, but the real risk is already here. The adversaries can connect encrypted data today and decrypt it in the future when quantum capabilities mature, and this may fit in like a financial system or long-term confidential data. So many organizations are not yet preparing for post-quantum cryptography, which is a major strategic gap. And also, I think second is AI-driven autonomous attack, we are moving towards agentic AI systems capable of reasoning and acting independently, like attack that are continuous, adaptive, and self-learning. So I think like many years later, cyber attack may operate at machine speed and scale far beyond human response capability. So this may challenge traditional control models entirely. And also, I think so I think the most underestimated risk towards 203 or quantum disruption of cryptography and also AI-driven autonomous cyber attacks. So the also the greatest emerging risk is not any single technology or threat. I think it's the gap between the speed of change in our external environment and also speed of adapting inside the institution. Yeah.
Okay. So Victoria, on the same note, looking ahead into the next 5 to 10 years, what would be the emerging risks or cyber risks that we should be concerned of in your understanding and with your experience right now?
Yeah, I think if we look at today's threat landscape, what concerns me most is not just individual threats, but their scale, speed, and also interconnected nature. Let me highlight some key shifts, like from isolated attack to ecosystem wide risk. Many years ago, actually, organizations focused mainly on defending their own perimeter. But today, actually, attackers target vendors, software dependency, and also APIs, and also cloud integration. So the supply chain attack have increased significantly recently. So this fundamentally change risk from enterprise level to ecosystem level. And also second, I think is the cybercrime has become highly organized and also commercialized because they are actually supported by ecosystem like ransomware as a service and SSD bookers. So compared to 5 years ago, actually attack are faster, more targeted, and more profitable. Even less skills, attacker can launch difficult campaign. So cyber risk is no longer just a technical risk, but actually is a systematic economic threat. And also another think of is AI-enabled social engineering because the AI is fundamentally reshaping cyber risk in few ways, like it may improve targeting and also deception. Like for example, the deepfake voice and also the videos in real attack. Some well-known cases where employees transfer many millions of dollars after video calls with what they believe were their executive or some personalized social engineering. So I think it expands attack service through new AI system and data pipeline. So I think actually most important is the AI lowers the barrier to entry and increase the sophistication of attack at the same time. So we are also seeing cyber activity increasingly aligned with geopolitical attention. So this may evaluate cyber from an IT issue to a national and economic stability issue. Yeah. Hope my insight can inspire you.
Yes. On the same note, now that you specifically mentioned about AI and generative AI, Jenny, what new governance and cybersecurity risks should an organization be preparing themselves for, in your view, in a short time since we're running out of time already?
Yeah, just a quick one. So I think what we need to understand is that with AI, we are not losing our accountability. Yeah. So we need to make sure that as part of the governance framework, there must be human in the loop to account for things. Yeah. So I think that is very critical. And also, from shadow AI adoption perspective, how can it be measured to take note, because you don't want information leak due to that. And we should not forget about the original initial model risk. Yeah, it is still there. Yeah, so I think what we need to pay attention on is not like looking at hallucination, etc. It is still there, but it's getting better, right? But rather taking a step back, how is your training data being put in? Because it will affect the other components of the model risk, right? But from a biasness perspective and transparency, etc. Yeah. So these are just a couple of areas that I think we really need to take note. And then the last one that we have to look at it is from a work redesign perspective. What kind of risk will appear because IA is now there? Not IA, AI is now there. It's interchangeably. Yeah, the AI is now out there. And how do you accept AI as either a working partner or is it a replacement? Yeah. So how do you see it? And that from a work redesign risk perspective becomes important because a lot of people just take and use it. They forgot to think about, how has your task changed that would lead to new risk being arised from such a change, right? So with the time constraint, I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Before we wrap up, since we are running a bit out of time, I think since this is SheLeadsTech and this is organized by ISACA Sri Lanka chapter specifically, and this is all female panel. So, Sonali, so one final question, and the other ladies can perhaps add on to that. What advice would you give to aspiring women professionals looking to build a career in terms of governance or risk management, cybersecurity, in basically IT GRC?
I would start by saying have a strong technical foundation. Of late, I've come across too many people who are scrambling chat groups online, and asking others, just simply trying to figure out what that basic knowledge is. And that's not the way to go about it. Whatever in area you are, I would say you have to build a strong technical foundation. And I would prefer if someone would certify themselves so that the technical foundation is solid. And the second thing is to go ahead and develop a skills that you can cut through regardless of what technology you're looking at. Technology is currently changing at the speed of lightning, the problems that come with it. So there is no way you can become an expert and then move to the next realm of technology that's about to come in the next 24 hours or so. But you have to have a good set of strategic skills and questions and answers that allows you to cut through and get to the bottom of the questions or what you need to do. On a softer side, I also want to, because it's not all technical when you navigate a career. And on the softer side, I would say do not play politics if it's possible, because politics are mainly based on insecurity, lack of integrity, lack of ethics, shortcuts to success, none of which really honors the profession of audit. I would say instead lean on facts, ethics, fair play, strong technical foundation, and a good sense of inner strength. And a couple of final points in sustaining one's career. A lot of people lose faith when they come across obstacles, but that is a part of how you move up. You are going to falter, and obstacles are not only external. You are going to falter. You may become redundant. You may be released. You may get a really bad performance evaluation, but there is no way you can take a journey to the top without any of it. You are going to come across all of those. And that's a part of the journey. And once you reach the top, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not easy. And a lot of people get to the top and figure out, oh my goodness, I never thought it's this hard. It is very hard. So you want to be prepared in the mindset of knowing that if you want to go to the top, it will never be that easy. It can be easy in certain ways, but it is a challenge. So I just wanted to give some practical views because sometimes people live in a view where things get better as they go up. There's the pride, there's the glory, but But your foundation has to be strong. Your inner resilience has to be good. And then at the top, you have to be able to stand on your own first, because it will be uncomfortable. And that's what I would like to say.
Thank you, Sonali. I could not agree more on that. Yes. Very wise words indeed. Jenny, Jayalaxmi, Victoria, would you like to add anything on to what Sonali just now mentioned?
I'm agreeable. Yeah. So make sure your foundation is there, and with that foundation and the soft skills that can be, applied in different work streams as you proceed, because it doesn't mean that you start with cybersecurity forever you'll be in cybersecurity. It's not true, right? Yeah. So sometimes along the way you get a chance to pivot, but with the soft skills you are able to pivot more easy than without it. And the other thing is also with the right fundamentals, you are able to challenge what we are facing currently, which is one of the risks that I didn't mention earlier on. That is the skepticism, the critical thinking portion. Yeah, because a lot of people, when you use AI, it's so easy to just fall back on relying on it just like that, very naturally, because the output is so nice. Yeah, right. It's so convincing. Yeah. So I mean, if you don't have that foundation, you can't put on, all this skeptical thinking, critical thinking to challenge what you are reading. Yeah. So I think that is critical as well.
Very well put. Thank you, Jenny. Jayalaxmi, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I would like to suggest to take the plunge, to lead on the technical side. Get the required knowledge from the right source and never stop learning. That's what we need to do to keep ourselves abreast with what is happening all around. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much. So with that, I think we have come to the end of the discussion session. So as the saying goes, we cannot control the wind, the wind that we work on, but we can adjust ourselves. So today's discussion was about how we navigate through these difficult times in this uncertain, volatile world. So with that, I would close the panel discussion, and it can be open to the questions if there are any from the audience. And Maruvandi, over to you.
Thank you, Thishanie. Thank you to all the panelists. Thanks for sharing your experiences, perspectives, and it was truly insightful, and thank you very much. I think all the participants were able to get some knowledge on the areas that we discussed today. So with that, we are coming close to our session, and I would like to invite Ms. Jayalaxmi to do the vote of thanks. Jayalaxmi, over to you.
Thank you, Rumandi. Hi, everyone. On behalf of ISACA Sri Lanka chapter, I want to express our sincere gratitude for all the keynote speakers, Deepti, Monga, Ashwini Natesan, Carol Lee, Victoria Tsang, Bandana Sharma, and also the panelists, Dr. Jenny Tsang, Sonali, Wickramaratne, Jayalaxmi, Bhandari, Victoria Tsang, and the moderator, Thishanie, Dharmadasa. Your insights were incredibly impactful and a true highlight of the event. Thank you for your time, dedication, and for sharing your expertise. Finally, I extend our gratitude to all the participants who joined today. Thank you for your time and support. We hope you found the sessions insightful and that you walk away with practical takeaways to apply to your work. We hope to see you all at our next event. Thank you all and have a wonderful day.